Hi, this is the AM News on the JoyNews channel across all 16 regions of Ghana, around the world on myjoyonline.com, on DSTV channel 421 and on GoTV channel 125. Also live on X Spaces, Facebook and on YouTube. I'm Sweetie Aboshi. Let's get straight into the details. Improper market construction, disregard for safety standards by traders, inadequate equipment for the Ghana National Fire Service, and rural to urban migration have emerged as major causes of market fires in the country. These issues came to light at the JoyNews National Dialogue on Fires, dubbed From Ashes to Action, Breaking the Fire Cycle in Ghana. The live event, broadcast across all JoyNews channels, brought together traders and experts, including Deputy Interior Minister Ebenezer Okulete-Telabi, who proposed actionable solutions such as market reconstruction, retooling firefighters, and fostering attitudinal change to tackle the crisis. Carlos Kaloni has a wrap of the dialogue.
The JoyNews National Dialogue, dubbed From Ashes to Action, Breaking the Fire Cycle in Ghana, gathered top experts including traders, insurance professionals, and government officials. A UK-based health and safety professional, Edward Deborah, pointed to inadequate emergency systems as the root cause of the nation's fire crisis, questioning the professional qualifications of some firefighters.
You would be surprised that some fire servicemen do not even know what it is they are fighting. That leads me to politics. We fix the square pegs in round holes. So when there's even fire, the people who are supposed to fight the fire don't have the requisite knowledge to be able to do it.
The Greater Accra Fire Commander, ACFO2, Rashid Kwame Nisawo, disagrees, insisting the real problem is improper market construction and limited access during emergencies.
The firemen don't have requisite knowledge to deal with fires. I think that is not true. To say that we don't have the requisite knowledge to deal with the Ghana fires in Ghana is not true. He said he's a fireman. I don't know which course he was, but the truth is that the men are trained. Some of us, I can mention main names who have certificates in Institute of Fire Engineers and have fire engineers in the Ghana National Fire Service. That is a fact. So please, if I know it's not everybody who is a fire engineer in the Ghana National Fire Service, but at least the training, we have gotten the training, and that I want to put that on record. Resetting Ghana, I think I will humbly suggest that all markets should be properly constructed.
A victim of the Katamanto fire disaster, Susanna Asabia blamed the rebuilding of the market by themselves on the fear that the place could be sold out to other developers.
We can't trust the elders of the market.
You can't trust them?
Yes. If you are a leader and you cannot be trusted, how can the people you are leading listen to you when you talk?
Okay. But why can't you trust them?
I'm coming to it.
Okay.
That is what I have seen. Because if you are a leader and we've got a disaster like this one, and people who love our country, elders who think about the traders, women and children and men have come to donate some huge amounts for you people to help the traders. And you cannot give out the monies that were given to you. Also, rumors were going out that they wanted to sell the market. So everybody was in a hurry to put up his or her structure before the place will be sold out.
Meanwhile, another trader, Nana Yao Oseidodu, blamed market congestion on rural to urban migration driven by high unemployment, insisting that no trader is ready to cede any space for reconstruction.
I would say one major cause has to do with this old rural-urban drifts. I hope you're getting me. And in one way or the other, connected to unemployment.
The managing director of Bedrock Insurance insists that rebuilding Katamanto and other markets should have been coordinated and well structured. But for Edward Deborah, a lasting solution requires attitudinal change.
Our challenge has always been enforceability, because you will find somebody who will be willing to bend to make sure that somebody gets things done without going through the right processes.
The Deputy Interior Minister, Emmanuel Oklete-Telabi, however, proposes the following solutions to the challenge.
How are the markets relating to the police, the fire service, and all those who matter, insofar as our safety is concerned? How are they relating to each other? Now, the other thing too is that we are talking about poor waste management. Now, the marketplace is our office. We want to do everything there, including even sleeping. In the market, people cook. How are we going to go about this? Can't we have, even that attitude must change, because if we say, okay, open the market at 6 and close at 6 a.m. and close at 6 p.m., in between, people can, cook. And in the process, if the market is going to be closed at 6, Ghanaians, you know how our attitude towards time. You wait. When it is 6:30, that is when somebody would want to cook.
Ghanaians are, however, hopeful that the proposed solutions from the national dialogue, including market rebuilding, retooling the Ghana National Fire Service, and training personnel for market safety, will help curb the high rate of market fires. Carlos Kaloni, JoyNews.
Government-backed National Surgical, Obstetric and Anesthesia Plan Technical Committee has raised concerns about the shortage of surgical professionals in the country. Currently, 70% of required surgeries are not performed due to shortage of trained personnel and infrastructure. As part of efforts to address this, the NSO Technical Committee, inaugurated by Health Minister Kwabena Mintah-Kando, has outlined plans to invest $502.6 million over the next 5 years. There's more in this report.
Ghana faces a significant shortage of surgical specialists, with only 6 specialists available to cater for 100,000 patients, a ratio which is far below the recommended figure of 20. Also, only 20% of district hospitals are equipped to carry out essential surgical procedures. Speaking to this grim reality, Vice Chair of the committee, Professor Ifwa Hesse, highlighted initiatives aimed at improving access to safe surgical care.
The baseline, as we estimated, we have currently only 6 SOTA physicians per 100,000 population. And we need to get to 12 by year 5. We estimate that the proportion of patients who just can travel within 2 hours to a facility is just 30. We are aiming at getting to 80 by year 5. We are looking at proportion of death and hoping to reduce it from 0.65 to 0.1. We're looking at the number of surgical procedures performed in one operating theater per 100,000 of population per year. And we're hoping to increase it from 869 to 3,000.
Professor Hesse indicated that about $500 million will be required for the successful implementation of the plan.
Well, we estimate the whole cost is going to be about $500 million. But it's not as if we're having to start from scratch. There's already a lot of work going on in terms of the various policies that the Ministry of Health already has for healthcare. But the importance is to bring in the surgical aspect, which is lacking, which is not as strong as it could be, into those plans. So that is what we'll be looking at doing. So we may not need all of it. Some of it is already in the system, and we may have to look for other sources of funding.
Health Minister Kwabena Mintah-Kando reaffirmed government's commitment to improving healthcare. He disclosed that government will, in the coming months, approve the proposal for a 20% salary increment for health workers who accept postings to rural communities.
It is our determination that we are going to roll out certain incentive packages. For example, we are going to look at increasing the salaries of people who are self-posting to underserved communities by 20% of their basic salary. So that is something we are determined to do. I mean, very soon we'll start the discussion.
The committee will focus on 6 key areas: improving infrastructure, service delivery, workforce development, financial sustainability, information management and research, as well as leadership and management. Reporting for JoyNews, Collins Frimpong.
School farms are making a comeback as government prepares to launch the Feed Ghana project, an initiative to boost local food production and cut reliance on imports. Already existing farmers and industry are expected to play a key role. Now, Agriculture Minister Eric Opoku says the project will drive self-sufficiency and transform the sector. My colleague Michael Ashali has more in this report.
Ghana's growing dependence on food imports is costing the economy dearly. Over $2.6 billion in 2022 alone was spent on rice, poultry and cooking oil. With major suppliers from Brazil and the Netherlands, the country is becoming increasingly reliant on foreign markets. But Agric Minister Eric Opoku says the real issue is not demand, it is the lack of investment in local production.
Although blessed with abundant agricultural resources, Ghana has struggled with food production inefficiencies, lack of infrastructure, limited access to essential inputs, and weak integration within the agricultural value chain.
Now, government is betting on a bold solution, the Feed Ghana project. The initiative will ramp up local cultivation of key crops like vegetables, grains, and legumes, aiming to slash imports and stabilize food prices.
Under this, we are going to launch the Farmers Service Centers. We also establish farm banks within agricultural zones to facilitate land access and irrigation services. Then we have the Grains and Legumes Development Initiatives. Under this, we want to introduce a poultry farm to table project to increase poultry production in partnership with Poultry Farmers Association. We have taken inventory of all the poultry farmers across the country. And this year, we intend to support about 50 to 100 of them. 50 to 100 of them. Each of them will be given not less than 80,000 bears.
It is not just farmers who will be involved. Schools and churches are also coming on board. The Ministry of Education has already partnered with the project to revive school farms, encouraging students to grow food to support their institutions.
The campaign is the Feed Ghana campaign. We want every Ghanaian household under this program to have a home garden. We are also urging all the secondary schools in this country to also have school farms. So we have had discussions with the Ministry of Education, and they have communicated to all the secondary schools in Ghana and the basic schools for them to participate. Then we also agree with us that in Ghana we have more churches than schools. If the people are hungry, can you minister unto them the word of God? And so we are urging the churches to also go into farming.
In just a few weeks, the project will officially kick off with President John Mahama leading the launch on April 11, 2025. For JoyNews, Michael Ashale.
In other stories, the Ghana Library Authority is raising concern about the declining use of libraries across the country. According to the Ghana Statistical Service, an estimated 6 million adults are illiterate. Speaking at the launch of the International Children's Day in Accra, Deputy Head of the Ghana Library Authority, Richard Obeng Asante, urged the youth to take advantage of modern educational facilities to enhance their literacy. JoyNews' Valentina Semenyo has more.
In many parts of Ghana, access to quality education remains a major challenge, with students writing on bare floors due to lack of essential learning materials. These barriers continue to hinder growth of young minds. It is against this background that the Children's Library Authority has taken action. At the launch of International Children's Books Day, Deputy Head of Ghana's Library Authority, Richard Obina Santi, urged the youth to take advantage of modern education avenues to explore their passion.
In this country, we have a lot of facilities that can really help your child to acquire knowledge that is relevant in our contemporary society. We entreat parents to visit here or to take their children through what we call educational trip. They normally visit Kwame Nkrumah Museum, other places. This is also another national edifice that the children can come here and have an experience to improve their reading.
Municipal Director of Education for Ayawasu West, Margaret Kaba, tasked the youth to nurture their talent and skill through continuous pursuit of knowledge.
As educators on insufficient literature, most of the times the books that are in stock may be outmoded and may be insufficient. So that is the main challenge. As parents, you know that we have other issues to deal with. And it's difficult thinking of literature, getting our children literature books.
A student at the 37 Military Hospital Basic School, Asantiwa Noeli, shared how reading has transformed her life.
Reading brings people together because even reading shows us how to make friends. And then reading also entails a lot.
Valentina Semeyon's report read to you.
In a fight against cholera outbreak in the Central Region, the Regional Health Directorate is initiating vaccination across areas in the region. Speaking on the process, the Deputy Director of Public Health at the Central Regional Health Directorate, Dr. Jojo Kobina, indicated that the vaccination is expected to cater for 541,970 people in the region. Abigail Isel Nkrumah has more.
The Central Region is making efforts to combat cholera disease in the region, the newest weapon initiated by the Regional Health Directorate being vaccination. The vaccination process, which will be conducted from April 4, 2025 to April 7, 2025 in areas including Abra, Asebu, Kwamankese, Infantsiman and Cape Coast, is expected to cater for 541,970 people. Dr. Jojo Kobina is the Deputy Director of Public Health at the Central Regional Health Directorate. He shares the eligibility criteria for the vaccination process while easing safety worries regarding the vaccines.
Regarding the vaccination, we have it's happening from the 4th of April to 7th of April. Eligible people are people from year 1 year and above and upwards. Exceptions are pregnant women and breastfeeding mothers who are not allowed to take the vaccine. The vaccine is very safe. Everybody should be assured that safety is very important for the government and for the Ghana Health Service. So we shouldn't worry about the safety of and it's very efficacious. So at the end of the campaign, we expect to have vaccinated 541,970 people to ensure that we have stop transmission, and hopefully will bring a closure to cholera transmission in the Central Region.
The immunization focal person of the WHO country office in Ghana, Fred Osei-Sapong, is commending the Central Regional Health leadership, adding that the presence of the vaccines is fortunate.
Let me commend the leadership of the Central Regional team for what they've done so far. If you look at the number of cases they've reported, it's quite very high, but the number of deaths has been really controlled, and that tells us that they've really put in good interventions. Case management has been good. That is why we are seeing those numbers. But that notwithstanding, it's our responsibility to make sure this outbreak is stopped. So yes, we are working to improve on sanitation. We are working hard to ensure improvement in the supply of potable water, but we are fortunate to have an additional tool, which is the vaccine. We are calling on parents, caregivers, proprietors of our creches and kindergartens to open their doors and ensure every person is vaccinated.
From Cape Coast, Abigail Nkrumah reports For JoyNews.
Dr. Wolanyo Kojo-Siabi, former CEO of the Community Water and Sanitation Agency, has warned that Ghana is losing the fight to protect its fresh water from pollution caused by illegal mining. He emphasized that the Water Resources Commission, which is responsible for safeguarding the country's water, is struggling due to its small staff of just 58 nationwide. Speaking at the launch of the Black Volta Watershed Investment Program, Dr. Wolanyo urged the government to increase staffing as the WRC to better fulfill its mandate. Rafik Salam tells us more in this report.
The former Chief Executive Officer of the Community Water and Sanitation Agency, Dr. Wolanyo Kojo-Siabi, churned out global statistics of freshwater, juxtaposing it with that of Africa and Ghana.
The world has 42.8 trillion cubic meters of fresh water. 42.8 trillion cubic meters of fresh water. Brazil alone has the highest of 13.2% of this total, and this amounts to about 5.65 trillion cubic meters. In Africa, DR Congo is the first, but 11th in the world, and has 2.1% of the 42.8 trillion, and that amounts to about 0.9 trillion cubic meters. And the per capita of freshwater resources in DR Congo is about 48,052. Compared to Ghana, we have about 54.4 billion cubic meters of fresh water, and per capita about 1,580.
Turning to DR Congo, Dr. Wolanyo disclosed that the 0.93 trillion of fresh water in the country can create hydroelectricity to power the whole of Africa, including its industries and communities.
Let's get into our business update now. Benjamin Akapo is standing by.
Let's get into our stories now. And about 70% of businesses in Ghana accrue less than 10,000 cedis annually. That's according to the 2024 Integrated Business Establishment Survey released by the Ghana Statistical Service. The report also showed that 37.2% of establishments in Ghana use digital financial services. Here is government statistician Professor Samuel Kobina Inim.
From the formal sector and from the informal sector perspective, Chairperson, here we are worried about two things. We are concerned about two things. One is having a lot more firms in the informal sector, and two is having a lot more firms that are very new, less than 10 years. The first part of the concern is that we still have about 71% of firms that are 50 years and older and are still in the informal sector. One was expecting that once firms stay longer, the likelihood of finding them, the likelihood of making sure that they keep records for their own growth will be pretty much easier than newer firms. But we still have firms which are 50 years and older, specifically 71% of them, which are still in the informal sector. And this definitely calls for reflections on how we intervene to support our businesses.
Now, the Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Anthony Sapong, has assured of re-strategizing to ensure that the revenue target is met despite the repeal of some taxes from the system. Speaking to Joy Business after opening the GRA's management retreat in Akosombo, Mr. Sapong expressed confidence that having the retreat would provide a platform for officers to energize and work to meet the target.
To pull back and to re-strategize, to reflect, and to look at all the areas that we need to do to be able to achieve this target. And in doing so, we're looking at areas in terms of compliance. How do we deepen the compliance in terms of our tax laws so that we can bring more people onto the tax net? How do we also ensure that those who are in it, we deepen their tax net and they pay on time? But also importantly, we are retreating on the theme transforming for impact, which means that if we are going to achieve our targets, we need to do some reforms. And these reforms will border on retooling, digitalization, ensuring that we build and implement the tools that will make us efficient. It's also ensure that when we are engaging with our taxpayers, we bring all the elements of customer-centric approach so that we can be cordial in our dealings with taxpayers. So we'll be looking at things like our behavior in terms of how we deal with the customers, but most importantly also our own behavior. GRA, we say be a first. First means we want to be fair, we want to behave with integrity, we want to be responsive, we want to provide service, and above all, work as a team. And this is so important that as management together, we really look at these core values and ensure that in our everyday action, we drive ourselves by these values. And when we do that, we believe that together with our entire team as GRA, we will be able to deliver on our mandate of raising 220 billion tax revenue for national development for 2025.
That's how we cap off our business updates. Back to you, Sweetie Abochi.
Thank you, Ben, for bringing us business updates. And that wraps up the AM News Bulletin on the show. We'll start with our conversations now. The news review is first. Please stay. We'll be right back. And you are live on the AM show on JoyNews across Ghana's 16 regions. And this AM show is sponsored by Waylead Properties. Now, are you thinking of a rewarding investment you can engage in? Then Waylead Company Limited is your preferred choice for such investment. Waylead Company Limited is a real estate company with several developments to its credit here in Accra. Their newest development, Willow Lane, is a place where elegance meets tranquility in the heart of Accra. You want to invest there because we provide quality housing at affordable cost and also with flexible payment options. And at Waylead Properties, we provide you 24-hour security, reliable power supply, and other social amenities to make your stay a memorable one. Give us a call now on these numbers, 0240-111-119 or 0504-499-999. Also, you can visit our website at www.waylead.org for more information.
Now, water storage is crucial to all of us. And my question, though, if we are talking water tanks, what do you have? Do you know the secret to real water storage? It's simple. If your tank doesn't have the tortoise on it, then it's not the correct tank. That's right. The tortoise tank, Syntex tank, is the champion of water tanks. It is strong, it is durable, and built to handle our Ghanaian weather conditions. So, if you don't see that tortoise on your tank if you go outside, well, then it means you have to upgrade. Join the Syntex tank family today and enjoy water storage that's tough like a tortoise. Call 0244-335-168 to buy now or find one of our 400 agents nationwide. You can also shop online at syntexgh.com. Syntex tank, strong, tough. Getting to our guests now, and Professor Isaac Boedi is Dean of Accounting and Finance at the UPSA. He joins the conversation. We also have the General Secretary of the CPP, Kwame Nkrumah. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning, my brother.
Quick thoughts? I'm intentionally leaving you to decide who will go first. Maybe I will give guidance. Today I've left you. Whoever goes first.
I'll go first. I'll go first. And this is a humble appeal to my learned senior at the bar, the Honorable Special Prosecutor.
Okay.
That he's doing a very good job in many ways so far. And I would plead with him not to get distracted. There have been some recent arrests of journalists and other things which give grave cause for concern. I think he's doing a good job, but he shouldn't get distracted. Because I have followed the discourse, and in my humble opinion, whatever the journalist said may not fall within the remit of the Special Prosecutor. And at the same time, too, I would call on the President of the GJA that we also want to hear his voice on these arrests, because the fourth estate of the realm has been very, very important in bringing the country's democracy to this stage. And if we have people being silenced left, right, center, it's not going to be a good thing for our democracy. So that is my appeal to the OSP this morning.
All right. Prof?
Well, I think since last week, series of allegations, we have not...
Did you say allegations?
I mean, containers missing from the port for some time now. I don't know what we've got into with those cases, but I'm sure we have security operatives. We have OSP also playing a role in some of these arrests. We can also channel resources. We are not saying that when people fall foul, we should not go after them. We should, but it should be done in a manner that we all will appreciate. That's what we want to now talk about. We've also heard something on tariffs, 10% tariffs for some time. I think 2 days ago.
From the U.S.
From the U.S. It's a running story. I'm sure as a nation we can have some bilateral agreement or discussions with the U.S. It's one thing telling the whole world I'm giving you 10% tariffs and you don't do anything and you sit, allow that thing to be implemented. Other countries had about 10, 30 or 50%. We had 10%. And Lesotho and the rest, they've initiated some moves of negotiating with the U.S. to consider the imposition of the tariffs. So we can do the same as a country.
I thought you were going to say we should implement counter tariffs. I mean, some would say, you see, sometimes I think we belittle ourselves. US aid is gone. Is Ghana not working? It's not to say that we don't need it. But you see, sometimes when certain things are taken away, you then realize, well, what's the saying? I've forgotten the exact saying. When it comes to mind, I'll tell you. But in very dire circumstances, that's where you unearth the very best in you, because you have to survive before you can thrive. So how you will get that...
Necessity is a mother of invention.
That's one of what I'm looking for. So, I mean, I think it's Namibia that in recent times, is it Namibia or Botswana, that also imposed, a visa requirement on the U.S. and I think the U.S. and some other countries, because they've been coming there without needing visas. But when these people are going to these countries, so stringent and all of that, I think it's high time we really valued ourselves. If you don't value me, and respectfully, this is a president who some time back referred to African countries as S-hole countries. Self-respect, dignity requires that. If you think, okay, you are imposing a 10% tariff on us, true, we import more than we export. But are there mechanisms we can look at to ensure that we are not just taking this sitting, that kind of timorous, soul logic. Exactly. How do we also stand up and say, okay, if you're doing this, fine, we'd like to negotiate. If not, we too, on this level, we feel we can do this. Mexico is responding with similar tariffs. Canada has had some sort of boycott of American products. The Chinese will definitely have more responses, the others. So it can't be that Big Brother USA is always, especially under a Trump-like figure, we can do anything. No, you can't. Exactly. It's a global world, and no country is an island. You will have consequences over time. Mark my words, over time. From Europe biting back at the US because of this tariff situation to other countries, the US will be the ultimate loser in all of this. Watch it.
And even three things have happened recently. I heard on the news that the Honorable Finance Minister, Dr. Kesla Tefosin, has instructed that certain commodities or items should only be sourced locally, and there will be no importation of those items, which is a good sign. And yesterday, I was following a truck full of live birds, and I hear one of the areas that to be impacted by the 10% tariff is the import of poultry products. And seeing these live birds yesterday gave me hope that these are some of the things that will revamp our local poultry industry. And as you said, America in the end will be the loser, because now grocery prices are going up. So
prices of eggs.
So we should grab this chance, follow the finance minister's lead, and let's look internally. Let's support our local industries, and I think we'll
in terms
do well
of
there.
solution to this tariff issue, we have numerous of them, and I only suggested one.
of sitting down the U.S. to negotiate. There are so many ways we can go around this. We can diversify our exports, deal with more African countries. After is there, and what are we doing with this regional cooperation that we have? We can also diversify our where we send our goods to, and then what can we also do?
And that is part of our problem, right? We've not diversified enough. And so but again, while, I mean, there may be issues with even the Russians and how they've dealt with the Ukraine situation, I'm not in support of the invasion or anything of the sort, though I believe the Russians also have their own case. That's up to them. But when all these bans came, they found a way of circumventing a lot of them, dealing with China instead. If it comes to chips, okay, so you're not selling chips to me. I deal with these other countries. I'm dealing with Hungary and the rest. There's always a way out. Yes. And let me just add, while the impact I speak of may not necessarily be in the immediate term, the US's soft power, already, China has such a big footprint in Africa now that the US and Europe are now, again, trying to consolidate. Look at France and what has happened in the Sahel, right? Yeah. So the US has also fallen victim. That is why now they are trying to claw back on rare earths in certain parts of the world, including here in Africa, having a stake. Because China the horse has bolted. Yeah. So you are losing soft power. And you may say that, in the immediate term, you will not feel the pinch. Some of these things that you actually end up feeling in the medium to long term will have much more impact on you, because then there's precious little you can do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. Most of the things that you've said. I think I'm more concerned about small businesses. The big businesses or the importations we do on large scale, national level, they have some shock absorbers. Yeah. But small and medium enterprises like women who produce hair for the diasporan communities, even the American, don't forget, America is a large market. You cannot say we're completely going to do without them or do away with them. So I just hope that these small businesses are able to innovate, like you say, or diversify, so that they are not caught in the middle of these two elephants fighting.
That's also where our leaders, the finance ministry and others will come in to sort of create mechanisms, whether it's levies, taxes, whether it's also creating that environment. Yeah. If you stabilize the CD alone, the impact of that, because then whatever they have to do, they may not be forking out X number of CDs to get $1 to do. So there are mechanisms that can be put in place to help such people as well.
And even AGOA is up for renegotiation this September. Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of small businesses are involved in it. So a case could be made for these small businesses, especially as I heard on air today that a lot of small businesses locally make profits of less than 10,000 Ghana cedis a year. And I think that's woefully adequate. Yeah. So those who are into exports have to be given the necessary attention so that AGOA can be renegotiated for their benefits.
Well, on that note, let's get into the newspapers. I have the Ghanaian Times. The first important piece of information here is the new cover price. So it says your esteemed newspaper, the Ghanaian Publisher, will be sold at 5 Ghana cedis from Monday, 7th April 2025 due to hike in production costs. So take note. And I'm unsure how much it sells for right now, but 5 CD, okay. It's 3 CDs, so 3 CDs to 5 CDs, okay. So on the front page, the Ghanaian Publisher, government owes Zoom Lion 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. Minister hails company. Kwachi Ofosu lied. No agency has invited me. Reverend Intimfojo is saying. Ghana Medical Association mad at Mahama over suspension of waiver on vehicles. Speaker approves arrest of 2 MPs for an undisclosed matter. I'm particularly interested in that. And bushmeat traders and hunters form association. It's about time. Any of you enjoy bushmeat?
Well, yes.
Yeah? Yes, I think it's a delicacy.
It's only when I travel beyond Accra.
It's true.
It's true. Travel beyond Accra.
Yeah.
Outside Accra.
Right, so let's get into the stories. Let me start with the Ghana Medical Association, because they're saying they are unhappy because they are preparing a critical emergency meeting to decide on their next course of action following the suspension of the vehicle importation duty waiver for public sector doctors and dentists. And moving on, the Electoral Commission is assuring workers that they're working around the clock to pay them. These are people who they recruited to assist during elections. They were supposed to be paid 600 cedis. And up till now, the Electoral Commission has not been able to mobilize the funds to pay them. However, they sent a statement and they're assuring them. It says that all temporary staff, Electoral Commission, and we assure you that we are working around the clock to secure funds from the Ministry of Finance. And that circular was dated March 7th. I don't know what the latest update is yet, but these people need to be paid. And government owes Zoom
This
Lion.
happens quite a lot.
Yeah.
Practically every electoral cycle. There are people, I think even after the district assembly election, if I'm not mistaken, like and that was just what, how many years was it 2 years or less to the main elections in 20? Practically every time we have this thing where and it takes such a while.
Imagine fighting the Electoral Commission as an individual, you're fighting for 600 cedis, you know? Anyway. It's bizarre.
But
the government,
You realize always is a smaller amount that we find it difficult to pay. We pay the big sums of money. The small ones, difficult to get from.
What are you?
Yeah, but sometimes...
I'm saying the small one payment should be very easy to pay. But the big ones are paid. How much
the big ones like the DDEP?
Oh, that will be too huge. But other contracts.
No, I mean,
Done by
it's payments.
some,
There are all big payments
done by
going
some other.
I dare say that sometimes, historically, sometimes it is easier to pay the bigger sums to such contractors and others because, I mean, say Oga getting.
Well, we can say this on.
Okay, let me continue with the stories in the Ghanaian publishing. I'll come to you, gentlemen. Speaker approves arrest of 2 MPs. So Parliament has agreed in principle to a request by the NIB to invite 2 members of Parliament, Mustafa Yusuf and Kwame Asario being A+ of Guma Central Constituency, for a preliminary interaction over undisclosed matters. And it's all that it says over here. And I'll stop here. Kwacho Fosu lied. No agency has invited me, Reverend Nsimfojo. And this is on the case of him blowing the whistle that some aircraft have entered the country, possibly carrying drugs and so on and so forth. And the president directing that he assists the security agencies with investigation. We saw a video where Felix Kwacho Fosu was saying that he was invited and he didn't show up. And so Reverend Nsimfojo took to his Twitter account to explain that this is not like the truth, because he hasn't been invited. And let's stop there for a while. Gentlemen, where do you want to start from? These are some stories here. Government owing Zoom Lion 1.2 billion Ghana cedi. Oh, is that what you meant by the big ones and the small ones? Right. Okay, I get you now. Let's start from there.
Yeah, government owes Zoom Lion 1.2 billion.
For what they did for 2 years, a little over 2 years.
Over 2 years. Yes. So meaning that this administration needs to take care of. We are told that when you inherit administration, you take care of assets and take care of liabilities as well. But I don't know the contract, the total sum, how much have been paid already. But such news sometimes, they are not pleasant to be told. Papers and graphic and front pages like this. We hope that after this issue, publication, maybe the government will sit down with Zoom Lion. They have been doing well for this country, and therefore such an amount needs to be paid. We can go into some negotiation if you don't have the full amount to pay. You can stagger the payment, and then you pay over time. Don't need to have these airlines like that. Then the issue about the Kwachi Fosu, the aircraft saga. A week ago or two, I don't know, we've been talking about missing containers yet to be accounted for. I don't know whether we have found some or not. Right after that, we also heard another issue about aircraft coming into our space. We don't know what they came to our country to do. Sometimes I want to hear some of these stories. In the news, we laugh, we joke, we talk about it, and we don't do anything. If care is not taken, one day we can have a whole president who will be captured and we don't know what to do. It's a serious issue. Containers, we don't know what happened to those containers, but if you go to the port, I can tell you the number of security operatives that we have over there today. One media outlet will pick the issue, discuss it, another will discuss, will talk and talk and talk and talk, then another issue will come. We had a breather when the 10% US came in position. So we stopped talking about it for a while. And the minister now comes, tells us that he was not invited. I think I heard him speak on some other program somewhere where he also debunked that claim that he was never invited to appear before any other committee to say his confirm or otherwise. Some issues like this, we have grown as a country to manage some of this information. If indeed we had the aircraft that came to Ghana and we have not heard anything, it shouldn't take the MP to come out to say this in public. A whole architecture, civil aviation, and nobody could, question. I don't know what happened.
While it shouldn't take the MP to come out to blow the whistle on this, do you think the approach the MP took was the best? Holding a press conference to say this rather than approaching, say, the National Investigation Bureau and saying that.
I wouldn't have heard this if he had not come out.
Yeah.
And must it be his concern? Of course, we are all in this country trying to protect our interests. But the whole aircraft lands at the airport. And we don't know what the missions were, what they came to Ghana to do. For me, we need to interrogate this further and find reasons why they came, what they came to Ghana to do.
Right.
But some of these allegations and comments, sometimes we don't have solution to those things. Today we talk about it, tomorrow another issue will come. They will leave the issue hanging. We don't have solution to all this.
Until it pops its head again, eh? Right.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go?
I would start from where Prof ended. I believe there are remedies for sorting out these two aeroplanes. I think it was inferred that they were carrying some goods that they were not supposed to be carrying. I think the MP could have reported to the necessary authorities, written to them, sought feedback from them. Civil aviation could have written back. I know that sometimes you are not allowed to release the manifest of airlines to say who was under. But at least he being an MP, you should give him some comfort that what he was thinking is not what he was thinking. But at the same time, so I think the MP went too far with the press conference because there are always remedies. Unless he took those remedies and he didn't get the response that he wanted. So I think he went too far with this press conference. But, well, it's already in the public domain. And the earlier GCAA and the necessary authorities come back with a response, the better. And then
you think Reverend Fojo went too far with the press conference?
Well, because before the press conference should be based on you exhausting local remedies.
No, I just wanted to confirm what he had said.
Yes,
right.
Yes. The press conference would have been necessary if he had sought the local remedies and he hadn't gotten a response. But if the press conference was his first point of call, then I don't think it is.
Which is what some others have said, that if he felt he had any issues, he could have approached the relevant authorities. Exactly. But he's put it out there, and I think it's only fair that since he knows more, he should be allowed to join or aid investigations into the matter.
Exactly, because we already have so much on the airwaves which people may call questionable. And we need to be fair that as much as it is good, the saying is that when you see something, say something. However, when there's too much suspicion on the airwaves, it affects governance. You understand me? The government is not perfect, but they're trying to get somewhere. And when you throw allegations around, the ordinary man sitting in his office will not even have the motivation to work, thinking that, we are breaking our backs and people are using power to do underhand deals. So I think once it's out in the public domain, let's look into it. But we shouldn't be so quick to throw things out there without doing the necessary groundwork. And also, another story that is top of my mind is the suspension of the waiver on the doctors' vehicles. We are all aware of the brain drain regarding our doctors. When they move to places like the US, they get so much more than when they get here. And those remaining here are really sacrificing. Those outside, I don't blame them. They've also done their bit. However, when you have incentives like this waiver, of course, if the waiver has been removed, there may be a reason. Maybe it was subject to abuse. It's possible somewhere over importing the vehicles and then
abusing the system.
And
then there's also that.
Yes. However, you shouldn't let all the doctors suffer for maybe the indiscretions of a few. So I think another look should be taken at it because I would say that doctors everywhere are one of the most hardworking people. I mean, they don't have working hours. They work round the clock, and whatever can be done to soften the ground for them should be done. And finally, to this EC issue, I worked for the EC for my national service in Jirapa Lambusi, Upper West Region, 2004, in an election year. And I remember that the payment then was very prompt. We had to recruit,
2000 and what?
2004.
Okay.
2004. We had to recruit some of my fellow national service personnel. I was working with the EC itself. We had to recruit people in the vicinity. And those days, there were some of the places where you have to go and do registration and other things. You cannot even access it with a car. You either walk or you take a bicycle. So I know that a lot of these temporary staff are working very hard. At that time, there was very prompt payment. But I know that now the electorate has increased, the polling stations have increased, the work is much, much more. So there may be a reason why it has delayed. But I pray that this is the last time that it will be delayed. And if anything, the money should be put aside before even the work is done. And as soon as it's done, they are paid promptly.
Just a quick bit on the tariff waivers that have been waived. So the waiver has wavered. It's been like the allowances for nurses, and it has fluctuated over time. I feel maybe there ought to be some streamlining. I do not know for certain whether past beneficiaries over time can still benefit depending on an extension of years. But for new doctors, fresh doctors, usually you would have Dr. Ikuya Mwako come here and lament about it because there was a time where it was taken off.
Okay.
So and then I think at the tail end of the erstwhile administration, some things were done. They were not completed. And then this administration also took over. I don't think that it is wrong to say that they should be given some help because they are staying here. Let's face it, if you go out there too, it's not like life is 100% rosy. I know people who are there and there are challenges, but it's better. It's better over there. If we can incentivize them, fine. But I think maybe we should look at ensuring that it is only for new doctors who may not have the means immediately of getting access to these, not for those who have been in the system for so long, who have already maybe benefited from it once or one too many times. I think then maybe we could be getting somewhere.
Well, that's it, but I want to put out this information. If you enjoy animal protein from wildlife species, you should rejoice because bushmeat traders, hunters have launched an association to regulate their activities. I think it's about time we do that. I love bushmeat, so yeah, you and I,
this love of bushmeat, I hope this love of yours is regulated because some of the bushmeat can take you to the bush.
We have to post on this. But I was a bit worried about the earlier submission in terms of allegations when we hear them. Which authority should respond to those allegations? But going forward, we should also take a lesson out of that when people put out information out there. It was responded by Felix. I'm sure the GCMA or the Ghana Aviation Authority, they have PROs, they should also respond to, not leave the issue to the president to respond to.
Because it affects them directly.
So they should learn out of some of this.
True. Okay, let's do some other papers. Daily Analyst, or Benjamin, do you want to get into yours?
No, he has the news center, and I'm going to, for the first time, I'm going to do this. I want to guide you on the story to do first. Will you permit me? AG's no-show in Latif Idrisu assault trial raises concerns, and that is because of how long this trial has been. Since what? Was it 2017 or 2019? Yes. He is with us here, actually. Do you remember that incident where at the police headquarters, he was assaulted he was hit, with the butt of a gun. His skull was fractured, and he's been in court for donkey years. So we have a personal interest in this story with Lateef Idris. So
honestly, I've not followed the...
Then you might want to get some of the scoop on that.
Yeah. So AGC no show on Lateef Idris assault trial raises concern. I don't know how many years the case have been.
It's been there for a while. I mean,
and justice delays.
6 years. 6 years plus.
Wow.
At least from.
Wow. So I think this is what we have on that. I have no idea about this issue.
Would you like to read a portion?
I think we can
just read a
go
portion.
Through the portion. On a day when the AG no show on Lateef assault trial case raised concern, on the day when the already protracted trial involving the multimedia journalist Lateef Idris against the Inspector General of Police, the Attorney General was set to resume at the family court in Accra. The senior state attorney handling the case failed to appear in the court.
And that has been what has happened over the years, up until this current, this administration has also taken over, and there are calls for action to be taken. So if you look at,
he has a lawyer now.
Oh yes, he's definitely being represented. It wasn't the first time. In fact, on April the 2nd, there had been some directive that the state prosecution should be in court to respond, and that has not happened. The very last one. So I think there's a 10-day situation, and in a brief declaration, the judge has adjourned the case to April the 7th at 10 a.m. And that is the latest on it. But like I mentioned, so yes, like I said, it goes all the way back to March 2017.
Yeah. And that's what it states.
March 2017.
Wow.
So we are seeking justice.
That's 8 years.
Yes.
It's a long time.
Judicial frustration.
Justice delayed.
Yeah.
Justice.
We're seeking justice for Lateef.
I'm sure that the lawyer...
We could have called him to tell us how he feels.
And it's had a lasting impact on him.
Yeah.
I mean, we who work with him know of some of them. There was a time where, if you look at the picture, you would see some of the things that sometimes he has on his head attached, just to... You may not realize it, but a fractured skull is no joke.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're seeking justice for him, and we hope the right things are done, at least as a new AG is in post. Right.
Well,
so thanks for allowing me to push
because I had not followed this story for a long time. Yeah. And then we have Blewit, the multi-faceted MT and CEO. That's what we have on the news center. And there's something on the banking, on the future, how EcoBank is empowering Ghanaian youth. And there's one that I'm also interested in, BOJ policy rate hike, MPC 3-2 votes and reasons. It's interesting. This is the first time I've heard this decision out there. The MPC is a monetary policy committee. I don't know whether it used to be 7, but now we hear it's 5-member committee. When they sit and they want to take a decision about the policy rate, they take a lot of things into consideration. The GDP, the inflation, the external sector relations and all that. Then they can confirm, do we maintain the same rate based on the figures that we have put out there, or do we increase or do we reduce? And remember, the policy rate guides the treasury bill rate. Sometimes when we are taking the decision on it, we have to be careful. But this is the first time decisions of the committee is out there. That now we can tell member A or member 1 voted
this way.
Member B voted the other way.
Is that good or bad? Okay.
Yeah,
right.
sorry.
This is my first time.
Yeah.
Transparency is key. It's important. Even judges, their decisions are. You remember Jay dissenting and all those.
Yeah.
This is the first time, and I have no qualms. I don't have problem about it. If it's a policy that they follow, that now decisions of the committee should be out there, that is fine. Of course, now I can read and know that member 5 according to the story, member 5 said we should maintain 27. We should not increase it to 28.
Okay. But strictly from the monetary or the policy angle, from where you sit, is this transparency needed? Is it a good thing?
Well, anything that, if I can get information to do what I want to do as a researcher, I will welcome it. I don't have, like Andy, I don't have a problem with this. If it's a policy by the administration, by the BOG, to let the information be out there, that is fine. But the problem I have is that once you get to know those members, and all the time they are voting no, what will happen?
The public will scrutinize.
Yeah. Who is that person always voting no? And who is always saying let's maintain? We'll investigate and find.
I'm sure they will mix it up. And
for me, if you tell us it's increased from 27 to 28, so be it. It's fine. Let's see the implication about the increment. For now.
Perhaps this only feeds into this administration. They came on the back of transparency, accountability jobs. So perhaps this feeds into the transparent.
There is
Prof, do you know any of these members?
I don't know. They use numbers. Number 5. Now we have number 4. I was doing the calculation. Number 5 said we should maintain. Out of the 5, I think 4 said we should increase to 28%. And truth be told, in Africa, we have the highest MPs, the rate. But the other leg is that Treasury bill rates have gone down.
Which some say is being artificially manipulated.
And
the IEA boss has said that, I mean, it may be artificial, but there could be, repercussions on the...
I was forced to write an article on this, that there should be
the central bank's end.
Yeah, enhanced relationship between BOG and Minister of Finance. Minister of Finance are there to give us, they always, they play the game together in terms of who auctions and who determines the quantity and the prices. Minister of Finance determine the quantity of treasury bill that must be issued and the prices that must be out to be set. Then the BOG also will auction, will be in charge to auction. So that's where they come together. But in terms of rules, they are far, they play the different rules. We should be careful that we don't continue on this path because we expect the monetary policy to guide the Treasury Bureau. Treasury Bureau now is from 29, it's now 15%. What it means is that policy rate, you try to mop up or contractionary measures to reduce excess liquidity in the system. But what you are doing, on the other hand, you are leaving a lot of funds into the system. So one try to contract, then one try to expand.
So there are different impacts, isn't it? When you look at the fiscal end and the monetary end, it would work in the favor of the finance ministry and its work, right? But for the central bank, it may not exactly be in favor of.
That's why there should be some, that relationship must be established because they all have, for instance, if you increase monetary policy, what are you trying to do? Your spending will reduce. You also have cost of borrowing will be high. My challenge has always been the startup businesses. They thrive on debt, they try to borrow. If they go to the bank to go and borrow funds to expand their product, their businesses, they'll pass on the cost to you and I, and we'll pay. So I don't know when you're going to be a member, and then your decision will be known here.
Okay, just a quick add up. So how will this affect people purchasing bonds versus treasury bills, for example?
Yeah, so now people now look for a safe haven. Because if you give treasury bill rates are dropping, what it means is that if you want to now put your money into the short-term investment, you get lower.
And bonds tend to be long-term.
Yeah, beyond 1 year. All right. So if I now go and put my money into a short-term investment, I'm getting a lower rate. Means that my yield or my profits will be reduced.
Or people will not be attracted to go to the funds.
So they have to now find out that either they
keep the bonds and all of that.
Yes, they keep the money, or they look for other investment and put the money in.
Okay. Other stories you'd like to do from the paper?
Well, I think that's the only one that I have for now. There's Access Bank, which injected 3,300,000 in women each ton. And then we have GMA, the same story, furious over suspension of duty waiver on vehicles.
Okay.
And the last one is the CEO of MTN I talked about.
The Daily Analyst then.
So we have no safe haven for illegal miners. This is a story
Ecological terrorists.
It's a story I've been following closely.
Yeah.
And initially when I heard they had been declared terrorists, I thought maybe an act had been amended. You know the way the United States can declare any organization as a terrorist organization and then treat them accordingly. But I mean, to me, I also see them as terrorists because apparently you even have a lot of people from the sub-region who are armed, who are engaging in illegal mining. I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible. This is more or less occupation. You can say it's a form of occupation by conquest.
Mm-hmm.
People who are not indigenous moving in with arms. We all know the terrorist issues that we have in the sub-region at the moment. And I think in the past, one MP spoke of a certain issue and he recommended shooting to kill.
Right.
And I was one of those who opposed what he said. But this illegal mining issue has reached such a stage.
That you've changed your mind?
I wouldn't say shoot to kill per se, but I think whichever sentencing regime is there should be more stringent because you know that when we have these rebel groups, these terrorists, they finance themselves through the sale of these minerals. So we actually have a security issue on our hands. Galamsey is now graduating from an environmental issue into a security issue. And I like the approach of the minister. Just that the figures he was putting out there, he said between 80 and 90%. I mean, 80 and 90%, that's 10%. That's huge. I mean, you should have some statistics to back it. You shouldn't just... I was very encouraged with the speech, but I think it's becoming something else. And I heard that this gold board that has come out will be a way to regulate it. So I think the current government...
that might actually make it worse. Because when you're regulating the sale of gold in the country with stringent, you're very strict with it, people will be more innovative in terms of how they can evade your systems, how they can still smuggle gold outside the country and make profits for themselves. But we all look forward to see how the implementation goes on that.
And then we also have GJA present to attend the elite jamboree in Dubai. When I saw this story, the issue of Mr. Asarbediako's arrest came to mind. Well, I am not a journalist. I believe the journalists, they have their ways of operation. I'm sure things are going on behind the scenes to address the arrest of, I think there was also Okweteche, the arrest of journalists. And good luck to him on the jamboree, but I would wish to hear his voice more on these arrests. And I don't know him personally, but I think one of your panelists used to be GJA president, Mr. Afamoni. And I used to hear his voice a lot.
But I thought he was actually vocal. He's the one that started asking for justice for the journalists who, were murdered, I should say. And on the issue of these arrests, these people, individuals, were picked up because of things they said, right? So these investigative bodies are only doing their job. I don't think it reaches the point yet. It has reached the point yet where the GJA president should make a statement. Unless they're doing something untoward is happening to them. But the man is not in custody. He's been released as we speak.
But what was his
on 5 million
misinformation and
5 million cedis bail.
Gordon Asari, what was his crime? What was the
Asarbediako.
Anyway,
for me, it was trivia issues.
Anyway,
we are following. We also have Parliament grants request for 2 MPs to appear before NIB.
Why are they telling us the story without telling us why they are being, hauled before the committee?
I do have my suspicion. These MPs.
Daughter of the widow comment or Medra comment.
No, I follow A Plus is one of the people in society that I really admire. I follow him closely on Facebook and other things, and I was also following his campaign, and I think he's a voice for the voiceless. But I don't know exactly what it is, but I can see on authority that sometime last year or so, he stated that he knows something about the killers of Ahmed Swale. I think
he's made some comments.
He said within
some
48
people
hours,
have suggested that he should come in. The same way some people feel if Reverend Fojo knows some things about this development, come and give us the information so that we can work with it.
Exactly. I think he said you bring it out within 48 hours. I follow him on social media. So I don't know if this is related, but, well, I suppose with time, nowadays in Ghana, nothing is hidden for long. I'm sure we will know. And then we have 57% of NPP supporters prefer Baumia, and Global Info Analytics, and 68% of voters blame Akufo-Addo for NPP's election defeat. Well, Global Info Analytics is one poll that I really respect. So if this is what they are saying, then I suppose that it may be quite accurate. And we have Kempinski launches 10th anniversary. Congratulations to them. I think they're one of the hotels that have managed to maintain their standards throughout. And then we have Syria condemns unjustified Israeli tensions rise over Turkey. And then Hungary withdraws from International Criminal Court during Netanyahu visit. So we also have a lot happening on the international scene. And I think Ghana is also, as a respected voice, especially with our current vibrant Minister of Foreign Affairs. I'm sure we are taking all these things into cognizance, what is happening all over. There are conflicts all over. Now, you even have US and EU at each other's throats with this tariff wars. And the CPP era, First Republic era, I remember Ghana had a non-aligned stance. I hope that we'll maintain that non-aligned stance and then speak out where we need to. And I'd like to land with a very good story about Honorable Shirley Ayekobotwe becoming the first ever African female head of the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
That's definitely one to celebrate.
Yes.
Officially, she's taken over now.
That is very, very well deserved, and I'm proud of her, and I know that she'll do a good job.
Congratulations to her. But just for context, Prof, this man was, Asari Bediako, is said to have alleged that the special prosecutor, Kisi Ajobin, asked the former Akufo-Addo administration for a private jet for his own use. That was the allegation that he was making. And so they picked him up for inquiry, investigations, and they let him go.
That's fine. When someone says something against an administration or institution, I'm sure the manner in which we invite them, operationalization of their arrest, should be done in a nice way that we will not sit here and be talking about it. If I say something contrary to what everybody expects, and then you want to call me, I think we should also have better way of inviting people so it doesn't become a public information out there. We spent a lot of
I think sometimes it's a way of deterring other people from doing same because of the rise of misinformation and disinformation. It almost falls on these security officers or institutions to ensure that they are doing things that deters other people from following the same.
But when he was arrested, he was picked up, it became, within 1 hour or so, the whole media space.
Because he's here in the media space.
Well, but we have to be decorous in terms of the way we invite them.
But what has he been charged with?
So the allegations he was making, but they've granted him bail.
He's granted bail in the sum of 5 million cedis.
Yeah.
To appear today.
Yeah. But exactly what is the charge?
It doesn't say. Just said he was picked up because of the things he was saying and he's been granted bail. Doesn't say. Yeah.
But truth be told, there are a lot of major issues in the country that we have to. This approach, we can apply the same thing so that we get the same results.
We have about 4 minutes to go. Or?
Oh, well, we have a bit more time to work with. We're going all the way till about 50. So, are you done with your paper?
Yes, I think these happen to be the news that I have here. Assemblies of God. I need to talk about this.
Is it Assemblies of God? Okay, you go ahead.
That's my church, so.
Go ahead.
So that's a church.
I can tell. Immediately you reacted.
That's the president's church too.
Oh, yeah. Yes, so,
and a former Chief Justice.
At least I have a president in my church. That's good. Assemblies of God reaffirms calls to ceaseless prayer at the 7th Regional Council meeting. Prayer is good. We need to pray for the country. And that's why the head of the church, Reverend Stephen Wingham, calls for. Ghana Evangelical Mission Association unveils 7-year strategy plan. Very good idea. These are the few headlines that I have here. There's something on IGPC Council with former IGPs. Interesting story. Yeah. IGPC Council for former IGP. Was the SWAL IGP there?
I just knew you.
No, I was also looking up.
I just knew you would go there because yesterday on a certain security platform, I saw a conversation about people saying that Dampare hadn't been invited and all of that. Others saying that if such things were being organized, there were certain procedures to follow, processes and all of that. I don't know the full details of it, whether he was there or not. But I think if this bit about seeking the ideas, the thoughts of others who have been there before is a very positive, step, and I think it's great. I mean, with the transition from this to that, I know there may be some issues because Yono had been there for a while. It was, if you look at seniority, who should have been there before, it's kind of like with the judges, okay? Yeah. But this move is a good move. Mm-hmm. Whether Dampare was there or not, that one I'll leave it to the police service to deal with its own situation.
Oh, it's a question that I asked.
Well, I didn't see him. I didn't see him. Maybe he was, because I watched it on.
If you didn't see him,
was he also invited?
Because the TV cameras
that's the
may
question,
not have
right?
captured
was he
him.
also invited?
That's the question. Was he
He's not in the
invited?
picture. Well,
that was what I.
The man just retired. He's probably vacationing somewhere.
But this is the time they need your advice.
He may be on leave.
He's probably just taking some time away from all the noise. But another question you asked, I found the information. So he was charged with two charges, false publication and false communication. And that's why they picked him up. Yeah. 2 counts of false publication and false communication. Those were the charges.
And false communication.
Because he was on air saying these things about the OSP.
That's interesting. Because if I need to take a closer look at that law. I mean, I don't remember coming across it in my practice. But if we still have something like that on the books, then that means that we haven't totally done away with the criminal libel law. And if there's something like that, I think we need to expunge it. Because a publication or a communication which does not augur well with anybody should fall within the remit of defamation. Otherwise, if it becomes a criminal act, then we may be going back to the criminal libel law days. But anyway, I'll take a closer look.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that's
your interest in it as a lawyer, so yeah.
Oh, yes.
I don't think that's a place we'll get back to. I mean, where we've got to now.
Yeah.
It's way gone. But let me get into the Daily Graphic newspaper. GRA assures refund of e-levy deductions after abolition. And as of yesterday, I checked in with some people who transacted, and they said there were no. Someone sent me screenshots, 00 e-levy, 0000. But on April the 2nd, some people, I think I even transacted on April the 2nd, and there were deductions. So yesterday was the 3rd, right? But on the 2nd, after it had taken effect, the directive was that there should be a refund. So that's what this story is talking about. And we'll see how that refund will. I think in the past, there have been some when the e-levy itself, at the point, there were some reductions and all of that. There were instances of having to refund, and it became pretty interesting. I wait to see how this time it will be handled. Private participation in ECG. Technical committee recommends 3 models. I'll quickly get into those models and then bring in a related comment from the former ECG boss, Dubik Mahama, and what he's been saying about the missing containers. So, the end of the era of the e-levy, that story is there. But let me get to the ECG one. So the technical committee tasked to advise on modalities for private sector participation in the distribution of electricity has recommended 3 models to inform the government's decision on the effective implementation of the strategy. Now, the proposed models are entity concession, involving giving the entire distribution to a private concessioner. Multiple lease, involving dividing the distribution into service parts, with each of them given to different private partners. And a service franchise, involving a private partner given the mandate to transfer the distribution services from sources to homes. I'll just repeat that because that's the only, so we all get it clearly. The proposed models are entity concession, involving giving the entire distribution to a private concessioner. 1. The second, multiple lease, involving dividing the distribution into service parts, so multiple leases, with each of them given to different private partners. And then a service franchise, involving a private partner given the mandate to transfer the distribution services from source to homes. And now I hear about 8 proposals came to the fore, and then they whittled it down to these 3. If you remember the PDS incident, you would have an idea of one of those models that was attempted to be used. And receiving the report, the minister reiterated that the government would not sell any asset of ECG to a private entity, adding that in all of this, you realize that there are no talks about the outright sale of ECG assets. They, that is ECG, will remain the asset owner. Going forward, the minister said his office would present a proposition paper to cabinet, and then a project implementation committee coupled with transaction advisors will be composed for a full rollout of the strategy using the best option. I'll start with you, Kwame Nkrumah.
I think I support the second option, where different aspects will be given to
different
players. Because, and I hope there will be local players.
So, speaking of some of the different aspects, you could be looking at metering.
Yes.
For example.
Yes.
You could be looking at, I mean, different components in the chain.
Yes.
And different entities.
I support that one, and I hope there will be maybe most or all should be local players. It gives us the ability to grow our own ability to deal with these things, because PDS, I think, will fall under the first category. And PDS, I think their collapse came with some legal issues. I don't think it had to do specifically with their ability to carry out the job. However, I do not think that giving a monopoly to any agency is good for us, because with the PDS issue, because it was a monopoly, there are all kinds of things against them. However, this having the second model, I think it will be good for us, because if you look at a lot of our sectors, even with Ghana Telecom, I think we had to bring some people from Malaysia before. I think when it was PNT, then Ghana Telecom, we had people from Malaysia, and then Vodafone, which is I think a Dutch company. PDS too, I think, was from the Philippines, or I've forgotten. It was also foreign. So this second model will be good. I support the second. I support the second.
What's your take on that, Prof?
Well, I didn't. There were some aspect that you read that the government now, the committee report tells us there won't be any privatization. Is that what?
What they are saying is, in all of this, you realize that there are no talks about the outright sale of ECG assets. There's not going to be a sale of assets, which means then that ECG will maintain a certain predominance. They will remain the asset owner.
Asset owner.
Exactly.
In fact, when this administration assumed office or took over, my initial inclination was that some of the assets, some of the state's own enterprises will be privatized. But if, going by this report, if there's that assurance, is good for me at this stage. I will look at the models later on. But the GRA, we can come to the GRA later. It's fine.
All right. The related angle I wanted to look at when it comes to ECG, in respect of the missing containers, there's been talk from Samuel Dubik Mahama. Let me just get to what he had to share, because he has said that, and he's also open to investigations, but he said that the ECG containers went missing but auctioned by the GRA over unpaid duties. And there are some questions in there. He says the containers went missing but auctioned by the GRA or unpaid duties. So the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority has been brought into the fray. The former boss said there's no way these containers could have been taken out without it being through the right processes. The GRA has also spoken on the matter, and now we hear this as well. I don't know what your take is. Since it's related to ECG, I just wanted to bring it in before we...
Because I'm looking at the way forward. We've been talking about this missing containers for almost like 2 weeks now. We have no idea what is happening. But there's one thing to talk about issues and don't give reasons and solutions. What are we going to do going forward? If the committee report tells us this is what we should do, we go by what they are saying. And then we'll look out for a proper solution to this problem. Because my earlier submission, I said, if we keep having some of these stories and we don't do anything about it, tomorrow, we don't know what will happen. You'll be walking and you'll be picked up, and no one seems to be bothered about what is going on. So, yes, good report, but how are you going to implement the report?
Okay. Anyway, I see Samukujetua Blakwa throwing some shots on his X page, but I'll leave that. Anyway, I'll leave that there. Let me get into other stories.
Oh, you can't just tease us like that.
No. Okay, so when Reverend Tim Pojo, had his presser, some people alleged that it was an attempt to be like, and I see the Foreign Affairs Minister post something about he's been seeing Temu Ablakwa, Tulaku Ablakwa, just some shots being fired, and I'm wondering. Anyway, it is what it is. We'll leave the politicians to do what politicians do. The GRA story. Well, that's what I got into basically. So they are saying that it's been taken off, and there will be refunds at least of the deductions that were made from the second. We'll deal with Galamsey ruthlessly. We've already delved into that. The government is open to deploying any option that will prove most effective for clamping down on illegal mining activities. But for many groups, the call is still for LI 2462 to be revoked in its entirety. However, it's emerging that some aspects of it may not have been so transparent, or I think there was a claim that was made. Was it yesterday? I just forget, about some big mining entities, like is it Newmont, for example, already having licenses in some of these forest reserves, and what a revocation would mean. But of course, we all know that any law can't be, what do you call it? What's the term?
Repealed?
No, it can't apply retrospectively. You get it. So it can only apply in the future. So still, the call is there. LI 2462. Should we amend? Should we revoke? That is the bit in there. Chief of Staff, Finance Chiefs discuss innovative financing models. But let me also do these international stories. Interesting. Trump tariffs pile stress on ailing world economy. We've spoken about it, but what exactly are some of the details? The latest round of U.S. trade tariffs unveiled on Wednesday will sap yet more vigor from a world economy barely recovered from the post-pandemic inflation surge, weighed down by record debt and unnerved by geopolitical strife. Depending on how President Donald Trump and leaders of other nations proceed now, it may also go down as a turning point for globalized systems that until now had taken for granted the strength and reliability of America, its largest component. So Trump's tariffs carry the risk of destroying the global free trade order the United States itself has spearheaded since the Second World War, said Takahide Kyuchi, executive economist at Nomura Research Institute. And this is the call that I've been making, that inadvertently, the US could end up sabotaging what it has itself helped create. And it could sabotage its own economy in different ways. I mean, you may look at it and say, oh, the economy is so strong and this and that. Trust me, there's no economy beyond going bust. And we saw that, was it in 2008 with the global credit crisis and the credit crunch and everything that happened. The US was one of the biggest sufferers of that. Look at the companies that had to be bailed out. So all I'm saying is, they can go on this trajectory, but I also see that it won't be all rosy for this campaign. You have a different opinion.
They have done a lot of assessment. This is not the first time we've seen Trump do this.
Trump is Trump.
When he came the first time, he implemented a lot of these initiatives.
It's a very good point you make. And saying,
the US at that point, I mean, you could see that.
No, but in terms of their economy, saying, what was the impact on their economy?
Did you check the numbers of the US economy under Trump?
Actually, if you look at and that's one thing that sometimes I guess Americans themselves may not. If you look at the metrics of the economy under Trump and the metrics of the economy under Biden at the time when, even though it had been lampooned and all of that, at the time when Biden was leaving, were there any real differences? If you looked at real GDP, if you looked at inflation, if you looked at, actually, there were practically no differences. But it was just the feeling that, I'm not feeling a certain way that maybe I could buy this in the past. Tell me.
As a Ghanaian, I am worried about the tariffs, the position. But look, Trump is Trump. He's a businessman.
This wouldn't
and he knows what he's doing.
Impulse.
You have a
lot of thoughts.
Do you have an idea how?
When it comes to Trump, there will be a lot of impulse.
How they calculated the 10% tariffs. It's not just coming out to say the figures. They use a matrix to calculate. That's what they were able to tell that South Africa will pay, I think, 50%, and other countries will pay.
I mean,
they use a trade surplus.
It's not to say there will be a lot of looking into this too. But I'm saying that if it is such a wide deviation from what the erstwhile administration has done, or what even in the last 20 years, apart from Trump 1 and Trump 2, has been done, it should tell you something. That's all I'm saying. And on the back of that, China urges US to immediately lift tariffs, vows retaliation. And China on Thursday urged the United States to immediately cancel its latest tariffs and vowed countermeasures to safeguard its interests after President Donald Trump declared sweeping levies on US trading partners around the world. I mean, it is what it is. You look at what is happening with Tesla, for example, and even, BYD was going to set up in Mexico. They decided not to do that for certain reasons and all of that. Tesla is suffering in the US because of opposition, in Canada. And obviously in China, BYD is already. So you look at all of these dynamics and you say the US is the juggernaut it is, but I keep saying, we'll come back to this someday. Now, maybe my final story on page 11. Society of AIDS calls for domestic funding across Africa. And this also relates to being self-sufficient. The president of the Society of AIDS in Africa, and ICASA 2025 president, Dr. David Nyatwa, has called on Africans and the diaspora to rise to the challenge of strengthening health systems with accountability, transparency, and universal access to care. He warned that without innovative approaches to sustainability and domestic financing, Africa risks regressing to the dark days of the 1980s and 1990s, when many died from AIDS due to a lack of medicine, which also reflects some growing at home so that you are not so dependent. Look at COVID-19. And again, my apologies to all sensibilities, but I love Madam Vice President, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. But recently, with a medical, issue, when interventions were needed, the UGMC, fantastic institution, they had to come in. But eventually, we still had to
fly out. Exactly.
So if something happens, God forbid, and you can't take someone out of the country for some reason, what happens to us? And for those of us who, if we have issues, you will not necessarily have the largest to fly outside that quickly. What happens to you? So these issues, Charlie, I always say that, be small matter.
Something came to mind. La Hosolo.
Yes. So those are the stories I wanted to look at.
And then, I mean, to add, even our dear departed former minister.
Is it
John Kuma?
Oh, okay. I even thought you were referring to...
Even he, I think, apparently from the reports I saw, they tried to repatriate him from Kumasi to Accra.
Yes.
So that means locally, it's as if Accra is a be-all and end-all. And if all fails in Accra, then you have flown out. So we seem to be living under the illusion that with our big hospitals, our fancy-looking hospitals, we have it all set. But there's work to be done. And I believe we can do it. We have the local wherewithal. Yeah.
The name that actually came to mind was PV Obeng. But his instance was a bit different because I hear the VCO thing and having the inhaler and all that.
And even there was a former minister too who had the same situation, also with an inhaler, somewhere in the early 2000s, somewhere in the north. I've forgotten his name, one of the NDC ministers.
We can also look at our former vice president, Emisa Arthur, and even our former president and all the dynamics in there. I'm talking about John Evans Atta Mills. Final words?
Well, GRA should be careful about how the refund, how they implement it.
Okay.
When and how. We also need to be careful how they do it, because if they don't do it well, it becomes another problem for this administration. A refund. It's not the first time hearing that GRA would do a refund for those who have to be paid. They should do it quick. They have to do that. They have to. And then the government must also let us know how it's going to take care of this fund, the revenue that is going to give out to people. Because if you don't have good source of revenue to the state, and now you have to let some of them go. And that's what we have been told. Administration takes over. It tells us that, well, he's going to reduce, abolish some of the nuisance taxes, and now takes off. This is the first. I think he did about e-levy, and then
missions,
betting, and all that. And now he signed. I'm sure he signed those.
He has signed.
So, but then, if you flip the coin, how is he going to get funds to show up to undertake the expenditures?
All right.
Should be clear.
Well, sweetie, I guess we can draw the curtains on the conversation.
That's it for the news review. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Those who joined us, Professor Isaac Boedi, he's Dean Accounting and Finance at UPSA. And we have Osajifo Kwame Nkrumah Butsio, he's General Secretary of the CPP. Stay, because there's so much more coming your way. The Friday edition of the AM show. Benjamin will serve as blunt thoughts. We have E-Corner and our big story where we are looking into the latest Info Analytics report or survey and the things that it's saying. Please stay. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. It's still live on the AM show. We get into our big stories, but note that the AM show is proudly sponsored by Waylead Properties. And we ask, what's the reading of the polls 3 months into the new Mahama administration in terms of direction of the country, the performance of government, and again, John Mahama's approval rating? Well, there are also ratings in respect of the police, immigration, and the judiciary in respect of corruption, and they are the most corrupt institutions in Ghana per the survey that has been conducted by Global Info Analytics. We have their executive director joining us in the studio. Musa Dankwa is here to break down what exactly the polls are saying. Musa, good morning. It's good to have you join the conversation.
It's good to be here.
I think post-election 2024 and the fallout and how spot on your analysis was or your surveys were, we've not really had...
no, we haven't had a chance to...
So this is the first major one.
This is the first major one.
This is about what? Almost 3 months into this administration's tenure.
Yes.
Give us an overview of what you did, what you analyzed, and why this is even important at this point in time.
It's always very important for us to see how any president is perceived to have performed as soon as he assumes office. In many parts of the country, they do it. And that becomes the baseline poll for assessing the president. That will be your honeymoon period. Then subsequently, when you track the performance, you can see whether you are deteriorating or you are improving in the polling. It provides a bit of a stock of where you were when you took office. And then also to seek the public view with regards to the perception of certain things that we've been monitoring over the years. In terms of direction of the country, the assessment of how you've done so far as a president, see whether there has been any changes in the perception of corruption since the new government took over, and also, all importantly, on the issue of people's standard of living and whether they are optimistic going forward, it will be better. So I think these are the things that we normally try to assess to give the political class a chance to see how they are perceived by voters.
Again, I would like to find out your margin of error, the number of people you interacted with. Just give us the executive summary of what the numbers look like and some of the questions you were posing to people, which elicited the responses that have led to these conclusions.
Right. We sampled close to 8,000. Let me give you the precise number. This time around, we combined two approaches, one web and one in the field. About 6% of the sample was deployed online.
Did you say 6 or 60?
6%.
6%.
That's the
online.
Online.
Okay.
The remaining 94 were done in the field.
Which means you go to
face to face.
All right.
To engage people. And the idea is that there are certain demography of voters, you don't get them in the field, but you get them online. People like you, highly unlikely will meet you in the field to interview you. But when we deploy the sample online, you could take part and we'll be able to know your views. So about, look at the data, about just one big one.
Okay.
About 8,470 people were interviewed in the field. And then 496 were interviewed online, or they took part in the online. So altogether, we interviewed close to 9,000 people.
So close to 9,000 people. And the general thread, what I see here, so you conducted this on the back of the 2024 general elections, and you say the outlook for the country is that 62% of voters now say the country is headed in the right direction. It's interesting. I mean, we'll go to the breakdown, because previously, at the tail end of 2024, you had another poll pointing to how many people were thinking the country was headed in the right direction, the favorability of the then president and all of that. So we'll analyze them. But I'm just looking at the initial issues. Then you say compared to 26% who said it was headed in the wrong direction. So 62% saying the country is headed in the right direction now, and 26% saying it's headed in the wrong direction. 12% have no opinion. Then you also look at 31% of Ghanaians saying that Ghana was headed in the right direction in the last tracking poll in October 2024. Let's break and just do that quick analysis. How much has changed? What has changed? And how is it reflective of where the people are? Do you get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
In the Ashanti region, for example, how many people are saying that things are positive rather than negative?
A lot has changed. If you look at where we were in terms of the direction of the country in October 2024, those who are now saying that we're headed in the right way is doubled the number that was saying in the right direction in October 2024.
Could you repeat that point?
The number of people who are saying that Ghana is now headed in the right direction has doubled.
Okay.
Compared to those who were saying same during the Akufo-Addo era. So it shows a significant shift in that number. And those who were saying wrong direction has completely collapsed from 62% to 26%. Now, the regional analysis shows that every region says right direction, except Ashanti region.
Every region says right direction, except Ashanti.
By majority.
All right. So we'll go into the numbers in Ashanti, for example. But you're saying that this is a total reversal of the opinions as of October 2024. Let's look at the clear numbers. What are the percentage differences?
For example, if you take Greater Accra, there are 75% of voters who are saying that Ghana is now headed in the right direction. 75%. 18% are saying wrong direction. When you come to Ashanti region, 39% are saying right direction, and 53% are saying wrong direction. If you go to Central region, it is 63 right direction and 19 wrong direction. If you go to Western region, some of the swing regions and other bigger regions, it is 55% saying right direction and 24 saying wrong direction. In Volta region, it is 81 right direction and 10% wrong direction. So the big regions are showing clear movement away from wrong direction, right direction, except Ashanti region, where small majority are saying that it is wrong direction.
I'm going to ask you an interesting question before we get back. If you pick these regions, Ashanti, Greater Accra, Volta, Central, and you look at how they voted in election 2024, how does it reflect these opinions that we are getting now?
In fact, it matches the same election results. Matches, because if you look at the gap between Bawumia and Mahama in Ashanti region, it was close. Bawumia won by 65% or thereabout, and Mahama got about 33%. In terms of the direction of the country, which normally correlates with the approval of the president, it is much higher in terms of what Mahama, the country is perceived in the Ashanti region than what Mahama got in the votes.
So the correlation seems to be there between the opinion reflected in 2024, or not just October, but the verdict of the Ghanaian people on December the 7th seems to still reflect in a way. But in the Ashanti region, for example, if you look at the 39% who feel the country is headed in the right direction, that would be some sort of increment, right?
Yes. I think we'll see it much more when you go to the approval of the president. In Ashanti region.
That's where it really comes to.
Yes, will come to.
Even as we look at the executive summary, I just want us to pick some tidbits before we get into the bits there. So on voter standard of living compared to a year ago, and recently I was at the Mamobi market. I've been to a few places asking people about how they feel. Even before that, I was in the Obrasport area last year after the elections. On voter standard of living compared to a year ago, 51% say it has improved. 14% say it has worsened. 30% say it's the same, and 6% don't have any opinion. Again, 65% of voters are also optimistic that their standard of living, so I'm putting them together, their standard of living will improve in the next 12 months, while 20% say they are not optimistic it will improve, while 14% do not have an opinion. If you box these together, what is the narrative there?
The narrative is that people are more optimistic about the future than they've ever been under the old government. It shows.
Are you saying under 8 years of Akufo-Addo? Because if you look at,
I would limit myself to the maybe last year of Akufo-Addo's government.
The last year of Akufo-Addo.
Yes.
Because in 2017,
in fact, if you look
at the favor that the goodwill the government enjoyed was.
In fact, we can go back to January 2022.
January 2022.
Yes. If you look at that data, those who were saying that things would improve or standard of living would improve was just about 27%.
27%. Now you have about 65% optimistic that their standard of living will improve.
Exactly.
So 20 what percent again?
27%.
27% versus 65%. If you do the math, that will give you what? About 38%. Right? About 38% increment on those who are optimistic that the standard of living will be better, and others reflecting that in 12 months, that's 65% thinking their standard of living will improve in the next 12 months.
And that goes back to almost 3.5 years of polling.
So January 2022.
April 2025 now.
Right. That's
the highest it's been.
And on voter standard of living compared to a year ago, now this one is sharp. 51% say it has improved. They are not saying in the next 12 months I'm expecting. No. They say now it has improved. How did you find that? Is there a correlation between that and any other matrices as well?
Normally it correlates with the optimism.
Okay.
If the past has been improving, then you hope that that improvement will continue in the next 12 months. If it's been very bad, unless something dramatic happens now, then you're still going to be pessimistic about the future.
When it comes to the issue of corruption, whether perception or otherwise, what are the matrices pointing to? Again, like I said, we are looking at the overarching bit, and then we'll come to institution by institution. But and we look at the ranking from 2024, falling by about 10 points, right? What picture are we getting? Is the opinion of people changing?
I think the perception has changed dramatically.
In which regard?
In the sense that now you have a lot more people in every region, except I think Bono region, saying that corruption levels is improving.
That's interesting. Every region apart from the Bono.
Yes.
I see. How interesting is that?
Very interesting because, I mean, even in the Ashanti region where you would expect them to be a bit pessimistic, over 51% of them are saying that corruption levels has decreased since Mahama took over.
We'll look at the matrices in a bit. We'll look at the league log, if you like, and find out those who are performing well and those who are not. But you reference here the 2024 Afrobarometer survey. As far as the presidency is concerned, it was adjudged then to be the second most corrupt public institution behind the Ghana Police Service. Are there any shifts there?
Significantly. Ghana Police Service retains the top spot. But the presidency has now gone to the bottom three.
Which means a shift from
second to the bottom three. So at the very bottom, you have government appointees and ministers as perceived to be the least corrupt.
That is stark, isn't it?
That is very stark.
But do you think anything has been done, really? Really? Because apart from maybe the rhetoric and the promises, part of what the NDC, the current administration, campaigned on was transparency, doing away with some of the corrupt practices that we had seen in the system and all of that. And also ensuring that justice was served in some cases, like in Ahmed Suwali's case, among others. But in terms of real actions, what have people been saying about why now the perception has shifted so widely?
I think it might be because of the personalities who have been appointed as ministers. If they've had previous history and records of corruption, that would have spilled over into their positions now. Perhaps the public see them differently, not differently, see them as probably not involved in any act of corruption for now. So they are judging them for what they know and what they have seen. So, and for me, it's very shocking because normally you don't have politicians performing very well when it comes to corruption. So what has caused the shift in that perception, for me, is telling. And I think we need to probably dig deeper into that.
It's really interesting, isn't it?
Yes,
because right from the apex of the corruption log to the very bottom, the bottom three. So from the top two in the erstwhile administration in 2024, Afrobarometer, now to the bottom three. Again, that's why I'm trying to probe. What are the real actions? Is it, like you said, the confidence in the caliber of people who have been brought in, which would then point to the fact that people are scrutinizing much more
than they used to.
Yes. Which is also reflective in their responses.
Yes. Another point is, I mean, in terms of the presidency, the actions taken by the president in terms of fighting corruption has annulled some kind of dividend to the way they perceive the presidency. And I think the people believe that he's not going to condone out of corrupt practices within his government. And that may be the cause for a high rating of the presidency in terms of least corrupt.
I'll do the one or two more issues and then we'll get into the extensive details. That has to do with, recently Christian Youno, the IGP, met some erstwhile IGPs, which I feel was a good thing. What's that? Peter Namfuri. I don't know whether you remember. He was an IGP a long time ago. We're alive. Unfortunately, he's not with us. I'm sure he would have been there as well. But he had this meeting. But there was something interesting. You took a look at the IGPs as well, Dr. Dampare and Christian Youno. In the survey, Dr. George Ekufu Dampare, the former IGP, enjoyed significant approval from voters for his management of the 2024 election security. It is important because we had seen incidents of people dying and all of that. Even there, we had some instances. But the poll showed 14% of voters rating his performance as excellent, 14% saying Dr. Dampare was excellent, 58% saying he was very good or good, and then 21% saying that, so 58% as very good, 21% as good, and then as average, 7%. Is that it? So as average, poor or very poor, 7%. However, 53% of voters supported the decision of the president to replace Dr. Dankwa. That's the interesting dynamic. After all of this was said, 53% of voters who voted in the 2024 election, right, supported the decision of President Mahama to replace Dr. Dankwa as IGP. 29% were neutral and 18% opposed the decision. Let's stick with him before we get to Yono. I mean, were there any key areas of interest for you there? The fact that some people still felt Dr. Dankwa had done a good job, but they were also in support of his being relieved of his duties.
Yes, if you look at the first polling data in terms of his approval in the way he handled the election, this is not surprising to us because before the elections, we asked them the same question, whether they have confidence in him, and they really had a very high confidence in him doing the job. So this confirms that, yes, they believe that he's done a good job during the elections, which is undeniably so, except post the election, there were some issues around security and some, I think, few incidents there. But when we asked them whether they support the president in relieving him from his duties, then a slim majority said yes, they supported the decision to replace him. Now,
that's 59%, right?
In terms of about 53%.
53%, right.
I believe that if this poll had been taken before he was sacked, it would have been different.
How different?
I believe that dividend of doing well would have spilled into let's support him to stay. But once the decision has been taken, they assume that maybe the president knows better. And for that matter, since we voted for him, let's back his decision.
What you're saying, in essence, then, is that if this had been conducted prior to his dismissal, you would have possibly had over 50% of the respondents saying that he should stay.
Yes. But that's my reading into it.
And the move of the president also affects the opinions of people on the ground.
Exactly.
Then you come to Christian Yono, and 58% say they have confidence in him. 58% say they have confidence in him. 30% are neutral. 12% don't have confidence in him.
It's a very good start as a new
58%.
Yes, very good start. I hope he can build on it. And maybe he needs to convince the neutral guys to come and join him. But if the neutral guys go to no confidence, then he will be in trouble.
This is the last one I'll do before we get into the incisive bits. EC, the Electoral Commission. So, and of course, there's Galamsey and all of that. We'll get into that. But for the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, 10% of voters rated her performance as excellent. 10%. 50% as good. 23% as very good or average. And 17% as poor or very poor.
I think she's done well per the poll. 60% saying that she's done excellent or good or very good, which is sometimes contrary to the general publicly held opinion about her.
So 50%
saying that yes, very good or good.
Or very good.
Yes.
50%. 10% saying excellent. Excellent. So what do you do in this instance? Do you compound excellent and very good and good to make it 60%?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Then 23% as average, and then 17% saying it is poor or very poor. So it's more like 60-40.
Yes.
Thereabouts.
Yeah. No, the neutrals are just it's probably going to be 60-16. But the negative ones are 16. So you must subtract the negative from the positive. Which leaves you a very good, comfortable margin.
All right. So let's get into the metrics. You mentioned here in your executive summary the numbers and all of that. Let's start looking at gender. What was the gender situation in terms of the numbers polled? I see 46-54. How did they shape up?
46% were female in the respondents, and then 54 were male. But ideally, we should be getting around 49-51. But in the field, I mean, you can encounter some of these things because there are mostly probably the men around and the women are hiding somewhere doing something. And also, generally, sometimes it's difficult to engage the women in the field.
And by age stratifications as well, yes. I see that the middle-aged people may constitute the largest bit because those 35 to 44 years are 36%, and then you add that to 45 to 54, that's 18%. So a chunk of those in the middle aged group. But I'm concerned about those 18 to 24. They also had quite a vociferous, turnout when it came to voting, 9%.
9%. Which is not different from even the voters register. They are not quite big in the voters register, between 18 to 24.
And then in terms of education, those respondents, 42% at SHS level, 31% at the tertiary level, and 15% at JHS, 12% with no formal qualification. And if I may just add employment as well, 55% of your respondents were employed, 31% unemployed, 13% students, 1% pensioners. And then there's religion as well. How do you feel these matrices affect respondents in terms of where they live?
It doesn't, because those demographic questions come at the tail end of the questionnaire. So we don't ask you some of these demographic questions before we start the survey, because we believe that by disclosing some of the demography, it tends to influence the kind of responses you give to us. So they come at the tail end of the questionnaire. Then we then analyze it after we've done the survey. So we are able to minimize those kind of biases by us, people who may fear that after exposing all my preferences or my demography, it may influence the way the questions are responded to.
I see some interesting comments. Let me just say, Eric Duku says, JoyNews, let him publish the raw data, including the GPS location of respondents on their website, and make it open access. If not, then it is cooked data, office-generated data. Well, some people said this in 2024, and we saw how that turned out. His data was very spot on in terms of even the regional numbers and the general electoral outcome. You do put out some things on X. I see you post on X and Facebook sometimes, and all of that. But I also know that researchers would not put out everything. But how do you respond to this person's?
We have raw data.
Okay.
We have GPS.
You have GPS.
But we are not an NGO.
Exactly.
We are a private company, and those data are what we call our intellectual property and also assets. So we are able to do more analysis with our data and provide different clients with different report. If you put this out there, he can go and sell the data to anybody and make money. So we will not do that. But we'll put enough there to be able to know what's going to happen. And indeed, no posters in the world put raw data out there. No poster. You can go to Gallup, you can go to all the incredible... Nobody does
I just found it interesting that this person was asking this because no poster goes out to put any of this data out there. This one says, where does he get the respondents? You know me from Ghana. But anyway, where do you get your respondents?
We first randomly select the constituencies to be polled randomly. We have the system that picks the random areas we have to visit. And then we pick electoral areas in the constituency to visit. So if he's lucky one day, he'll bump into us. And luckily for us, people witness us in the field. Sometimes they do call me. They get my number from the field and they call. I want to talk to Mr. Dankwa. Then we speak. So as for us, we don't do our polling in secret or in dark. We do it openly and transparently.
How many people would you usually have on the field for a poll like this?
It depends. For example, we did 84 constituencies. We have 84 people in the field.
Okay, so one person per constituency.
Per constituency, yes.
Okay. And cases, averagely, how many? Go ahead.
In some cases, 2, if the sample size is big and want to compress the period to a short period of time.
Okay. How many people would this one person likely interact with, on average?
The big constituencies, you could have about 170 people, and the least sometimes about 25 or 30.
Okay. Then you look at the religious stratification, non-religious who partook in it at 3%, others 4%, traditional 5%, Islam 21%, Christian 66%. But when you break down the Christian denominations, you have Methodist at 22%, Catholic at 19%, Presbyterian at 18%, Pentecostal at 15%, Charismatic 9%, Anglican 8%, others 6%, SDA 3%, Jehovah's Witnesses, none of them participated in it. When it comes to Islam,
they will be done, but maybe when you run the figure down.
Okay, so it's negligible.
Negligible, yes.
It's negligible, right. Then Sunnah, in terms of the Islamic sects, 53%, Ahmadiyya 15%, Tijaniya 13%, Shia 11%, others 7%. And then ethnicity. I just want to put these three together. Ethnicity is interesting because 48% of those you sampled are Akan. And of course, Akan is also pretty broad. It's not just Ashanti. Akan. Ebbe, 11%. Mole Dagbani, 10%. Gadangbe, 9%. Others, 9%. Guan, so you're talking of the KJBs and the Jasikans. And the Guan, 8%. Gurma, 2%. Grushi, 2%. Mande, 1%. Gur, 0%. Again, it could be negligible. If we take a swipe at survey results from 2024, the last quarter, and now in terms of religious affiliation and all of these, and we sort of draw the nexus between the responses, are there any correlations?
No, you normally don't see big shifts in demographic. They're the same people. There's no influx of accounts into the country. So you have the same kind of number of people that you sample in the field. And eventually it will reflect the GSS data when you average it over time. So I think nationally accounts around 47.5. But in this response, about 48 or so. So eventually you see those demographics matching the GSS. Not in just one sample, one survey, but when you average all the surveys and you find maybe moving average of that numbers, eventually you will see that they will create that because they represent the people you are interviewing.
I'll come shortly on the party affiliations. There's an interesting picture there. But before that, Joshua Sumani says, do politicians and political parties come to you for your data? And how often does it happen? I find that interesting because the current minority, then majority, I mean, your surveys were criticized a lot and they were pretty spot on per the results of election 2024. Do you get politicians come to you seeking your data?
Yes, they come quietly.
Quietly?
Quietly, yes.
They come quietly?
Both parties, yes.
So when you say there are many parties in this country?
We have clients in MPP. We have clients in MPP.
You have clients in NDC, you have clients in MPP?
Yes.
Okay, so you have your answer there, Mr. Asumeni. Now, if you look at those you sampled, in October 2024, 33% of them were NDC, and then 42%, is that the...
36 MPP, so the blue ones are for the same period.
October okay, so 33% NDC, 36% NPP in October 2024.
Yeah.
Yes, but I'm trying to say that 33% were NDC in October 2024, but in April 2025, 42% of your respondents were NDC. So that's gone up by 9 percentage points. If you look at October 2024 for the MPP, 36% of respondents were MPP. Now, in this current survey, we are talking of 32% are NPP. And then those who failed to disclose, then 12%, now 7%, and others 4% and 3%. What is the FV category?
The floating voters.
Floating voters, right. So it's stayed practically the same. It's just a little more in this current survey, but it stayed practically the same. How do these affect the results?
It does. Normally, even in the US, when party affiliation of a particular party is up, they tend to win the election.
Favorability is higher.
It's high. What we saw after election is that a lot of the voters have moved from MPP to NDC.
A lot of voters have moved from NPP to NDC. How are you able to determine
if
that?
Look at the numbers here. Look at the numbers. MPP 36, 32 now, down 4%.
Right.
The floating voters, flat, the same, hasn't changed. Not disclosing is down just 5%. And then others declined 1%.
1%.
So if you
look at the NDC
numbers, it's about
NDC's numbers, that's 9%.
So just not disclose moving to NDC will not give them that percentage. So people must have come from MPP into NDC column.
Okay, so you say might have come, and if you look at the electoral outcome in 2024, you can tell that there were a number of people who may have voted NPP in 2020 who did not vote NPP in 2024.
No,
so you can also draw this analogy.
NPP doesn't make you voting for MPP candidate doesn't make you an MPP.
So here you're talking of core members.
People who say they vote for MPP.
Okay, so
die-hard.
Now they've left MPP. They see that they are now in NDC.
Okay, so that's the specific category.
Yes, specific category, yes.
I see. Interesting point. The key issues to look at, of course, economy, unemployment, all of these came up. And the interesting thing is that ethnicity and religion are at the bottom. You know, sometimes a lot of noise is made about ethnicity and religion. One of the latest bits we had was Kennedy Japan, you know, some would say maybe curiously stating that the former Vice President, Dr. Bawumia, was not able to cross the hurdle of becoming president. I'm sure you've come across that.
Yes.
Because of his Muslim, origins. But if you look at it here, per the polling, it shows you clearly that ethnicity and religion, while there's a lot of talk about them, really don't factor in. They are contributing 2% to the conversation.
Let me explain this data. You have given people a long list, but restrain them to choose only 3 most important. When it comes to most important issues, religion and ethnicity will be at the bottom, because in the face of unemployment, economic crisis, educational crisis, nobody will put religion and ethnicity at the very top of his priorities. But when you segregate and said how important was the religion of the candidate to you in deciding who to vote for, then you have about 10% say that yes, religion is important, and about maybe another 12% saying ethnicity is very important. Now, broadly, 10% in election could be material, could be significant.
It's good.
But in fact, it gets even worse when you look at certain regions and the way religion and ethnicity plays role in their thinking. On the study we did, whereas nationally, about 10% of people said religion is the key. When you go to Ashanti region, that number goes to 27%.
Religion?
Yes.
Religion?
Yes, nationally it's about 10%. But when you disaggregate the data into the regional component, then you can see the regions where religion plays important role.
In the Ashanti region,
yes,
it goes up
by
the
highest.
An extra 17% on top of the national average.
Absolutely. So that's where you begin to understand the effect of religion and ethnicity in the overall numbers. If you take it at the top level, you might conceal some of the serious issues that may exist there. So you can look at even the Akan regions and how religion and ethnicity play a role. Look at the northern regions, see how important religion and ethnicity is. Do the same for voter region. You see stark differences.
And it's interesting because in the last election, we had 2 people of northern extraction competing, facing off there. And we saw the results, from the different regions, from Savannah to, how it played out. I also want us to now disaggregate the direction of the country data when it comes to the regions. You already mentioned that the Ashanti region, and I see it clearly here, those saying in the Ashanti region, no opinion, 8%. Those who say the country is headed in the wrong direction, 53%. Those saying it's headed in the right direction, 39%, which in any case would be a positive for the current administration, even if we are going by election 2024's data. But let's look at the general picture. I want us to look at the stratification when it comes to the different regions, from Ahafo to, the Bono region, Bono East, Central, and all of that. Walk us through them.
If you look on the same question of direction of the country, you see that Ahafo, about 61% majority said that right direction. Only Ashanti region, 39%. In the Bono region is 75%. Bono East, 54%. Central, 63%. Eastern region, 47% majority. Even there's below 50%, but still majority of people saying right direction. Greater Accra is 75%. You have Northeast region, 86%. For me, that's shocking. And then
that's the big shocker for me, and we know why.
Because that's where Bawumia
Because that's where the former vice president, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, comes from. Northeast region, 86% saying the country is headed in the right direction. If we go to the Savannah region, it's 70%.
70%.
How interesting is that?
Very interesting. So you see, when people feel things have changed, they voice it out. So across, look at in the voter regions, 81% voter region. Upper East, 72%, Upper West 58, Western North 62, Western 55.
So Northern region, Volta region at 81%, and then you have the Northeast region 86%. Of course, the Greater Accra region, which has been somewhat of a key swing region, also is here with 75%. And then you have Ahafo, 61%, and it goes on and on. Does this picture paint any, how would I put it? Does it, how much of a good stead does this poll put the current administration in?
I think very positively. For you to turn around the direction of the country by simply changing government and having this big movement, I think it shows how people probably were very unhappy with the previous government.
Is it not also on the back of goodwill? Because we've seen this before. I'm sure if you were polling in 2017,
you would have seen something.
If you were polling in 2017, we could have seen merely by the goodwill
of the people. You may see. Sadly, we don't have data. So,
and it goes on and on the direction of the country in terms of party affiliations and all of that. Then the president's job approval. So those who approve of what is happening in October 2024, we're looking at 36% saying President Akufo-Addo was doing well. In April 2025, we are seeing 66% saying John Mahama is doing great stuff. So that's an increment of 30%. In October 2024, we were looking at 59% saying that they disapproved of Akufo-Addo and how he was running the country. In April 2025, we are looking at 23%. That's a fall of about 36%.
Yeah.
And then those with no opinion also factoring in 5% in 2024, October, 11% now. I want you to box that into the president's job approval, regionally speaking. Again, what do we see?
No, we also see the same trend to the extent that even Ashanti region, just by 4% majority, are saying that they don't approve his performance.
So those who are approving in the Ashanti region are 42%.
Yes.
Of John Mahama. 42%. 46% disapprove, and then 12% say they have no opinion.
Which is very impressive in Ashanti region.
So if you look at, get this, the country moving in the right direction. You had 39% in the Ashanti region. Now, those who are approving of President Mahama as an individual and his leadership, you have what?
42%.
42%.
Plus 3% over.
Plus 3% over the general
direction of the country.
We looked at some interesting regions when it came to the other dynamics. Northeast region, again.
89%.
89%. What's happening? This is very interesting.
Very interesting, very interesting.
89% coming from the Northeast region, and then the president's own region, 95%.
Voter 90%. Western region 68%. Western North 67%.
Right. This would definitely be good news for the current administration, but where the devil is in getting complacent, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. They can't get complacent with this one. And they have to monitor it, and they have to keep working hard to maintain this level. These are quite high levels. I'll be surprised if it stays this high in the next 3 months. If it does, then it means they're doing something different.
You'll be surprised if it stays this high over the next 3 months, by which time this administration would be about 6 months old. And mind you, when we looked at the standard of living, there were those over 61% who were saying that we believe that our standard of living over the next 12 months
would improve.
And then about 53% that said, or 51% that said that already now we see an improvement, which means that by and large, the next 3 to 9 months will also be a determinant in how favorable this administration's positioning will be.
Absolutely.
So the standard of living optimism is here, but let's also get to corruption. I want us to quickly get into that. Those who feel corruption is improving. In October 2024, we're looking at 20%. Now they say the state of corruption in terms of improving in countering it, 56%. That's an increment of 36%. Then you look at those who say corruption is getting worse. It has fallen from 52% in October 2024 to 14% in April. That is huge.
That is huge. That is huge.
That is 38%, almost 40%. Those who say it is same, 24% in October 2024, 23% now, and then those no opinion, you put them together, that's about 11% from then and now, difference of 3 percentage points. And then state of corruption by region. Again, I want us to put them together. So these are the opinions in the different regions on corruption, right? So let's look at the bigger picture of the fall of the perception of corruption and then look at the state of corruption in the regions.
I mean, I think the work that the oral team did and the kind of engagement the Attorney General has been doing with the media in terms of bringing to for what he's been doing and who is under investigation, I think has led to people believing that corruption is coming down.
In terms of, again, the percentages regionally, because then it paints a certain picture. If you look at, now I'm very interested in the Northeast region. Those who say in the Northeast region that the fight against corruption is improving, 74%. In the Volta region, 69%. In the Savannah region, 77%. In the Greater Accra region, 72%. In the Central region, 51%. In the Ashanti region, 51%. Again, a positive coming out of the Ashanti region.
Very positive for Ashanti region. 51%. Majority of voters believe that corruption level has reduced.
And these matrices then feed into the league table of the most corrupt public institutions.
Certainly.
So I mean, over the years, from the Afro Barometer to the corruption perception in the indices to other, surveys that I regularly conducted, we look at these league logs and the angst is real. Some entities are still very high up, even as evinced by your survey. But walk us through this one and why these differences matter. Walk us through them.
No, if you look at the current table, in fact, what we did was that we asked voters to rate these institutions from 1 to 10, 1 being the least corrupt and 10 being the most corrupt.
So if you get a 10, that is you did form when it comes to corruption.
Exactly. So for each of these institutions, they were ranking them between 1 and 10.
Okay, so just a pause. Are you sure all of them got this right? Because usually a 10 is a better score than a 1. Are you sure it was explained properly for them to understand what they were doing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We said with 1 being the least corrupt and 10 being the most corrupt. Which of these institutions, what mark are you going to assign to each of these institutions when it comes to corruption?
And you know why I'm asking that? Because the converse is true when it comes to
cases,
some other surveys. But let's get to it. So what did it reveal? I see the Ghana Police Service here at 6.3. That's the average score.
Average score. That's
6.43%. The Immigration Service, immigration at 5.86. The Judiciary, 5.78. If you look at some past Afro Barometer reports and look at this, they're still in the mix.
In fact, Judiciary was 5th last time.
Yeah, they're still
now
in the mix.
Now they climbed up to 3rd in our survey.
With 5.78. And it's interesting because in recent times, the president was also speaking to the Ghana Bar Association's president and talking about sanitizing the judiciary. There's also the other issue we have on our hands. But the officials of the Ghana Revenue Authority, 5.68, they are 4th, GRA. Then you have local government representatives. I want you to give us the breakdown. When you say local government representatives, which ones are you looking at?
The assemblymen.
Assemblymen and women?
Yes.
Just them?
Yeah, just them. We had MCEs in the mix, but we took it out because we don't have them in place yet.
Okay, so it wasn't a part of the final survey?
No, we took them out because they used to stand on their own as MCE. But because they have not been appointed yet, we took the list out. So we didn't want people to think about the old ones in terms of wanting to focus on the new administration and the new people that are in office.
When you speak of business executives,
private sector
business executives, okay, and the response in there 5.63%. It almost
Yeah,
so this thing we shouldn't just be looking at.
I think they understand that the corruption that happens in public sector is done in connivance with the private sector.
I see. Now the officials of the Electoral Commission, they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the list, right somewhere in the middle. The score, because it's yellow, magenta, 5.58. Then you come down to traditional leaders. Chiefs?
Yes.
Okay, then there's the Parliament of Ghana. I think something has shifted when it comes to Parliament.
Yeah, they've come down.
They've come down a bit because I think the last time Parliament was a bit higher up. Then you have the prison service, the military. The military has performed pretty well in some of these surveys. The perception is that they are pretty...
They used to top.
Right.
Among the least corrupt.
Right. But now at least they are fourth from the bottom.
Yes.
And then you have the presidency at number 3 from the bottom. Then you have religious leaders, and then you have ministers and government officials. How crucial is this development? Ministers, government officials, the least corrupt.
Perceived right now.
How did we get here? Because I think at least from the top of my head, the last time they were pretty high up.
They should be up.
They were very high up.
You see, the new appointments made by Mahama administration with regards to the ministers and also the other agency heads, probably the people of this country have not seen them to be corrupt, or so far they haven't heard anything about their corrupt practices, so they will get this higher score. But normally, once you're a politician, you tend to be seen negatively, whether there is evidence or not. But for the first time, you are seeing the politician, which is the presidency and then the ministers, featuring very, very low in the perception index for corruption.
And you juxtapose that with the Afrobarometer survey when it comes to Ghana in 2024, as of August 2024. In that time, the Ghana Police Service, I guess the constant is the Ghana Police Service.
Yes.
The Ghana Police Service, per your survey, 6.43 points, perceived to be the most corrupt, right?
Yes.
If you look at the Afrobarometer survey of August 2024, which is right beneath, there too, they were perceived to be the most corrupt. If you look at those that were saying they were the most, or all of them were corrupt, 63% and 31% saying some of them were corrupt. Next, under that, at that time, was the office of the presidency, then tax officials, then members of parliament. So you see, members of parliament have, at least if we juxtapose the Afrobarometer versus what you have done. Judges and magistrates were next. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Judges and magistrates were at number 5. Where are the judges and magistrates?
Number 3 now.
Now, they are number 3. So they've climbed up in terms of the perception of corruption. The Electoral Commission was at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I think it's at number 7. Okay, so perception. Do you think that also accounts for the delivery in election 2024? Do you think?
You know, the EC is broad and big. And people may have their own perception about the officials of the EC, but they look at the head of the EC as critical. And I believe that this score is not bad, looking at even how she's been rated in terms of people's perception on how they've performed. The score is not bad. I mean, they have not deteriorated in terms of how they were rated last time. Kind of maintain their position.
The assemblymen and women were at 31% the last time. They were somewhere below the EC, MMDCEs, civil servants. Then they came. Then we had business executives. The business executive bit too, I think there's a little change in there in terms of business executives. Interesting in there. Oh, you wanted to say something?
It seems they've climbed up.
They've climbed up.
Yes.
Also interesting in there, you'd realize that from the bottom, the last time, in terms of the least corrupt, Afrobarometer, NGOs were at 18% in terms of most or all. Private media journalists were at 21%. Religious leaders were at 21%. Public media journalists were at 24% before traditional leaders. Why didn't you sample the thoughts on the journalists?
We really wanted to focus on the bigger public institutions. And also, the questions were too long for voters. Once it becomes too long, they don't even have time to finish the rest of the question. So we try to make it a bit reasonable by taking into account the biggest one we believe that are the key drivers of the corruption.
All right. Let's look at another crucial issue, Galamsey. The current state of Galamsey under Mahama. Those who say the fight has improved, 38%. Those who say the fight has worsened, 10%. Those who say the fight remains unchanged, 44%. And those with no opinion, 9%. And then the current state of Galamsey under Mahama in terms of national mining and non-mining
areas,
regions. So I want us to focus first on the current state of Galamsey broadly. Let's take a look at that. What is the real picture before we even get into the mining and non-mining areas?
Nationally, I think people believe it has improved.
Okay.
By about 28% points.
By about 28%?
Yeah, because those who said it has improved 38%, those who said it's deteriorated or worsened is 10%. So if you subtract the two from each other, you get plus 28% for those who said it has improved.
But you look at 44% saying
the same. So those who are neutral and they don't really affect the movement in the numbers. Now the detail or the devil's in the detail when you go down to the mining and non-mining areas compared to nationally. Within the mining areas, about 28% has improved, 28%. And then another 25% has gotten worse. So frankly speaking, in the mining areas, the difference is not that much. It means it's not getting better by that significantly, no.
So if you look at the mining areas nationally, 38% say it has improved. In the mining areas, 28%. The non-mining areas, 42%. Then those who say it has worsened, 10, 25, 9%. Those who say it is unchanged, 44, 42, 39. So it's around the same bracket. But the real interest then is those who think it has improved.
Yeah.
Nationally, 38%. In the mining regions, 28%. In the non-mining areas, 42%.
I mean, is
there anything else you'd like to add?
If you are a government, forget about everywhere else and focus on the mining regions. But that's what the true story is.
Focus where?
In the mining regions.
In the mining regions.
The views of those people living there is more realistic than national or non-mining regions.
So the mining regions, those who say it has improved, 28%. Those who say it has worsened, 25%. Those who say it is unchanged, 42%. If you were dilating on this data, if you were a government official.
It means nothing has changed, but it hasn't gotten worse.
Nothing has changed, but it has not got worse.
Yes.
I see. Then there's another issue, the current state of, in inverted commas, Dumso and Mahama. So 20% say it has worsened, 34% say it has improved, 41% say it is unchanged, 6% have no opinion. And before we get to free education, what does that reveal as well?
In conclusion, Dumso has not worsened.
Dumso has not worsened?
No.
But it hasn't become better either?
No, if you look at worsen, it's 20%, improved 34%. So there's a plus 14% for improvement compared to when they were probably comparing their experiences to.
Okay. Godwin Ajete now says, and this is a point we have made, but just briefly, he says, the issue of the country heading in the right direction after elections is because we equate good governance with a change in government after an abysmal performance of the incumbent. It goes on and on, but Godwin, we've already dilated on that matter. Free education was a crucial area because the current president kept saying, I will not, throw it away. And the then, leadership said, if he comes, he will throw it away. The current state of free education under Mahama, 11% say it has worsened. 44 is pretty. 44% say it is unchanged. 37% say it has improved, and 7% have no opinion. How does that reflect?
It suggests
comparatively
that it means things have improved in the senior high schools by plus 26%.
Plus 26%.
Yeah, which is quite significant.
And maybe the president also in the SONA stating that reiterating that free SHS has come to stay may have impacted
I think what is driving that improvement is not that statement, it's the feeding.
What is driving that is not that statement, but the feeding.
The feeding, yes.
The feeding in the schools.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we saw of the wache and everything and the eggs and all that, and people saying they had not got that for God knows how long.
It's causing that improvement.
You're saying if that feeding aspect is sustained, it would have very positive impacts on on the perception when it comes to free education.
Because the double tracks are still there. They haven't been removed yet when the polls were being taken, right? In terms of the quality of teaching, it hasn't changed. The only thing that we saw has been some movement around that is the feeding. So if the feeding improves, then it means that parents will not send supplementary food to their wards regularly, and that would feed into the feeling that things has improved.
That would feed into savings, and that would make some people more optimistic
Absolutely.
about the situation.
Absolutely.
Generally, what's the reflection on the 2025 budget?
Positive. About 64% of voters were satisfied with the budget. Only 10% were not happy with it.
The neutrals, that's an interesting figure, 26%. And maybe where we'll cap off the conversation, the responsibility for the MPP's defeat in the 2024 elections and a few matters more, and then we shall cap off the conversation. But it's interesting, right? 68% of your respondents are saying the reason for the MPP's defeat was Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. 40% say Kanoforiata. 30% Dr. Bawumia himself. That's 37%. Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, his running mate, 33%. And it goes on and on. So this is where we are wrapping it up. But how does this feed into the electoral results and maybe both parties, both the NDC and the MPP, the strategy going forward?
I mean, it shows that the election, to some extent, were a referendum on Nado's performance and as a president. And that's why you see about 68% of the people they were blaming was Nana Addo. And this could be indecisions or some attitudes he exhibited during the last month of the campaign. And that may have put people off, and Bawumia could have probably paid the price for all those mishaps.
And so what caused the election landslide? What caused the landslide?
I think largely our theory has been correct, but more enhanced with this data. About 14% of people who had planned to vote for Bawumia in the election, on the election day, switched their vote to Mahama.
How many percent?
14%.
Wow.
That is huge. Because you see, the landslide couldn't have been explained by just Alan and Bediako voters. But they were not quite big enough to create that kind of gap. So the extra gap we saw was actually a loss from Bawumia's camp to Mahama.
I see. So if I asked you in a nutshell, summarize for me everything we've discussed by way of these polls, what would you say? In respect of governance in Ghana, what would you say?
I think for governance, the government is riding on a very high note and high confidence of the public. And also the optimism about the future economic prospect is much higher now than it's ever been. And overall, corruption remains an issue, but for certain key institutions. For some others, there has been a remarkable turnaround. So for those who are in charge of the police service, the prison, the immigration and the judiciary, what they should be doing, I really don't know. They have to really find a way to first change perception. In fact, if you go to other countries, you see billboards that tell people not to give bribe. I think that's where something can start.
That's where we have to go.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Let people know that they shouldn't be doing this while they're engaging with these institutions.
All right. Musa Dankwa, thank you for engaging us this morning. He's the Executive Director, Global Info Analytics, and he's been sharing his thoughts on the latest polls, the latest surveys as conducted by his outfit. Now, every year, thousands of Ghana's brightest minds seek better prospects abroad, leaving a gap in our workforce. But how can Ghana inspire its talent to stay? Join David Ofosu-Dorte, Professor Mary Setrana, and Her Excellency Dr. Amina Gurib Fakim, a former president of Mauritius, at the 12th edition of the Ishmael Yamson and Associates Business Roundtable to discuss managing the talent exodus, leveraging private-public partnerships for growth. The date is the 7th of May, 2025. The venue is the Labadi Beach Hotel. The time, 9 a.m. If you'd like to register, text your name and organization to 0530 117 202 or shoot an email to info@ieyamson.com. Remember, the AM show is sponsored by Waylead Properties. In a bit, I'll be serving you my blunt thoughts, and I've titled it Of Poor Prioritization, a Bleeding Fire Service, and Unfulfilled Promises. Issues for government to address urgently. That will be coming your way in a bit. Do stay. Well, thank you for staying. It is time now for me to serve you my blunt thoughts. And I've titled it Of Poor Prioritization, a Bleeding Fire Service, and Unfulfilled Promises. Issues for government to address urgently. Of poor prioritization, a bleeding fire service, and unfulfilled promises. Issues for government to address urgently. And let me get right down to them. I'll be telling you about this. I recently got very interested because the 2025 Get Fund allocation for MPs stands at 400,000 per member of parliament. It's not that 400,000 is going to them, but there's a breakdown. Let's go to that breakdown quickly. You will see that in terms of education, we're looking at 250,000 for education-related projects. And I'll tell you about the projects. But 150,000 for monitoring education-related projects. That's where I am scratching my head like, yo, members of parliament, what's going on? Like 250K for the education-related projects, 150K for monitoring the projects. What's happening? Let's go to the next slide. Now, in terms of the budget, right, Parliament has agreed to amend the MPs Get Fund allocation from 350,000 to 400,000. And you see, this is where it gets interesting because this was what was budgeted for, but there was hue and cry in Parliament, majority and minority, okay, to increase it to 400,000. What's interesting, I've not heard of any of our MPs who often portray themselves as saints and all of that. You know, I've not heard of any of them complaining about it, not on the majority side, not on the minority side. No one is complaining about this large quantum of money being allocated to them just on the educational front. Now, let me just make this point before I proceed. Though unconfirmed, word out there in the media is that the MP's Common Fund is going to be around 800,000. And I admit, we can't confirm as of now. So I'm putting it out there. About 800,000 cedis. For the many other things they have to do. Though, mind you, technically, MPs are not agents of development. So from the Common Fund, what Mr. Ibrahim was, lamenting to me the other day, oh, but MPs, we have to do this in our constituencies. You have about that sum coming your way. And then an extra 150 for just monitoring on education. Do you get the picture? When it comes to such matters, you will not hear PIM from the minority. Nothing from the minority. But when it comes to other issues, you want to talk about it. Is it that when it comes to chop or issues that money can be sought, that one, I've not heard one minority person talking about this. I'm lampooning both of them, majority and minority, because it doesn't really make sense, does it? It doesn't. How can you say you need 150,000 to monitor something that is worth only 200,000 Ghana cedis? How does that work? When it's time for money to go around, everybody is quiet. And that one, everybody will take it and put it on themselves. Kule. No, complaint about that because they will all benefit from it. But is this moral? Is it how many working Ghanaians earn up to the 150,000 they are going to be using for monitoring? How many Ghanaians today in a year earn 150,000? You'd have to be earning what? How much per month? Over 10,000 cedis per month to be able to get that. Maybe 12,500, 13,000 cedis. So let's contemplate it from that angle sometimes. If you look at the ordinary Ghanaian and you look at some of these sums we throw around, Charlie, the country hard. Oh. But let's look at further details when it comes to this. Next slide. The breakdown, the use of the GET Fund allocations by MPs is supposed to go into construction, renovation or expansion of schools, provisions of desks, chairs, whiteboards and computers, financial assistance for needy students, supplying educational resources, that is textbooks, exercise books, mathematical sets, and more. Next slide. So on that point, please, let's contemplate. I mean, something can be done about it. The disbursals have not happened yet. Something should be done about it, I think, because we can't have this kind of lack of equality in the system. If you're going to use that money, then we should then put the MPs to the sword for them to account for every peswa of the 150K and how it was used to do the monitoring. How about that? But that brings me to my second point. Yesterday we had our national dialogue on, the fire service, from ashes to action and all of that. My heart breaks sometimes. I understand the fire service is not living up to our high standards as a country. But you can't hold someone to certain standards when you are not giving them the right tools. You are not giving them enough. Let's face it. Whether it's crane, tenders or the normal tenders or other things we need to equip the fire service with, as a country, for a long time, we have failed. And I will explain why. The fire service has been appealing for tools. It says it would be a great initiative for corporate Ghana and well-meaning Ghanaians if they supported the fire service with some life-saving extrication tools. Extrication tools, like, let's go to the next slide. This was actually a post by the Ghana National Fire Service. And that is what I just read. And with the hashtag, support the Ghana National Fire Service now. Yes, I agree. Private enterprise, all of us can contribute. But are we also saying that as a country and as an administration and as a government, we can't get basic extrication tools? If it has not been done in the past, would we continue that way until the next fire at a market, in someone's house? Or does it have to hit some politician's house before we go see, say, Charlie, the matter chopot? I mean, it was good for the fire service to post this because we've asked them to do more, but it was also sad seeing this. Charlie, it's heartbreaking. How can we hold them to such lofty standards and then do this to them? Extrication tools. Come on, we can do better. And here's where it gets even worse. Next slide. 2024 fire service budgetary allocation, 1.077 billion. You may think this is a lot. It's a drop in a bucket, basically. Next slide. And if you juxtapose what we give the fire service and what we expect of them to what we give the police service and maybe what we get from them, yeah? Because the latest poll, it says corruption. Or that. I'm not saying the police service is, no. There are very fine police officers and they are also doing their bit. But if we want to be fair, look at it. Fire service versus Ghana Police Service. This is the budget in brown or magenta or red that you see of the fire service. 702 million in 2022. Ghana Police Service, 3.1 billion. And we're always sending vehicles, motorbikes to them. Look at the fire service in 2024, 1.07 billion. And then you have the Ghana Police Service shooting up to 4.6 billion. I'm not saying the Ghana Police Service shouldn't get what it's getting. We need policing, even for a 24-hour economy. But you can't do this to the Ghana Fire Service and expect them to do magic. They are not magicians. Do you get what I'm saying? They are not magicians. So let's be fair to them, and then we can hold them to those high standards. But you have even Ghanani hydrant you've built on top of it. Now, when there's a fire, they have to use a pickaxe to open. And you are sitting there saying, fire service, fire service. How about you? Next slide. But the last bit I want to deal with has to do with President Mahama. Is he fulfilling his promises? We are keeping track, and we said we would, and we shall. So, progress on Mahama's 120-day social contract. 87 days so far. Next slide. In terms of progress, at least 8 of these promises have been completed. 9 are in progress. 8 have not even started yet. So let's break it down. Next slide. If you look at the completed promises, e-levy betting and emissions taxes abolished, gone. Seed money for Women's Development Bank, we had it in the budget, 50+ million Ghana cedis. National economic and education dialogues have been held, free level 100 and free tertiary for persons with disabilities. All done. Next slide. Then outstanding promises, scrapping COVID-19 levy. That one has not gone yet. Banning political appointees from purchasing state assets. We've not got a conclusion on that yet. Code of conduct for government officials, restructuring loss-making state-owned enterprises for profitability. I guess that is part of what is happening with ECG. Streamlining government scholarships administration. And let's go to the next slide. So if you look at it, in terms of progress on Mahama's 120-day social contract, 68% of promises are unfulfilled, not fulfilled as of today. We have 33 days left. Next slide. But a further breakdown would show that the progress on Mahama, the promises in progress, right, constituting the leanest and most efficient government, it's also not completely done because of some other bits left in there. Then scrapping COVID-19 levy, forensic audits on financial mismanagement cases, the 24-hour economy policy, and banning illegal and new mining activities in forest reserves. Some of these are ongoing. And then launching the Black Star Experience, reopening investigations into unresolved criminal cases. The Ahmed Hussein Swale one is ongoing. Probing the VRA's Akosombo and Pong dam spillage, and then compensating flood victims in Oti, Bono East, and Savannah regions. If you put the composite together, this is what, next slide. The progress in terms of after the completion of promises in progress, if you add that to the ones that have already been completed, you'd be looking at 68% of promises that would have been completed. As for the others that have not been touched at all, only time will tell, like the 24-hour economy policy. So this is what you'd be looking at if those in progress as of today are completed. But there's still a lot more work to be done. And government must be on the grind because we are watching and we shall keep our eyes where it is. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. These are my blunt thoughts served to you, raw, hot, unedited, undiluted. As always, Ghana first. May God bless Ghana and make her great and strong.
A platform that supports education. So ASANKA is actually an acronym which means All Subject and New Knowledge Access. All Subject and New Knowledge Access. Now, when we talk about ASANKA, we are looking at both hybrid teaching and learning, where we have offline and online mediums for teaching and learning. You cannot mention ASANKA without emphasizing on the offline accessibility, which means that students, teachers have access to countless great content, educational content for teaching and learning to continue. Again, the platform is aligned to the GES structure or the GES curriculum. So whatever you learn on the platform is helping you go through your academic journey from the basic level all the way till you write your BEC.
Right.
And in addition to that, once you get one device of ASANKA, just one, you are able to connect to 20 other users, which makes it more, user-friendly, and then it has multiple connections for other devices.
That's interesting because I thought ASANKA was like an app that you download on your mobile device or laptop. I like that you clarified that. But so, I mean, for platforms like these or devices like these, it means you had identified a gap and that you're trying to fit, right? So in terms of education, the content and all that, what gaps did you identify and what needs are these really coming to?
All right, so in terms of education, we are looking at three main things. One, seamless learning, where the student has no boundary as to what to learn and how to learn. I remember in the days when I was going to school, my teacher was teaching us respiratory system and then drew some kind of skeleton on the board and talk. And they'll ask you, do you understand? With ASANKA, we have interactive quizzes, interactive content. We have videos and animation that help address all the types of learners. So we have visual learners, auditory learners, those who read and write, and then we have what we call the kinesthetic learners, learners who must do something for it to stick. So ASANKA is solving all these challenges once you are on the platform.
Which of them are you?
Well, you will see I'm a visual learner.
Okay, let's pause here for one.
I think I should ask you that question later.
I'll tell you later.
All right.
Mildred, you are head of customer experience. You manage customer experience there. Who are your target customers?
Okay, so anyone with a zeal or passion to improve learning outcomes in education, or you're in the edtech space, you are a target. So if you're an individual, a parent, a school owner, school proprietor, NGO, organization, anyone with a zeal to improve learning outcomes, the Asanka is the solution for you.
Okay, so how is this different from other forms of edtech or other platforms that learners already go to access information and all that? What's your unique selling proposition?
Okay, so Asanka not only ensures smart learning anywhere without the use of internet connectivity, but it's also cost effective. And it's also cost effective, and it helps to improve operational expenses. So with the Asanka, you have real-time analytics. So whilst the child or the learner is on the Asanka, the parent or the teacher can sit in anywhere, can monitor the child's progress, what resources the child has accessed on the Asanka, how long the child has used the Asanka, their weak points. You can use the Asanka with the analytics feature to ascertain how well the child is doing on the Asanka and how to improve their academic performance.
So quickly, let's talk about the relaunch. What exactly that is happening in terms of relaunching? Is it an event that you're inviting us to? Thomas, take that for me quickly.
All right, so we actually relaunched on the 27th of March.
Oh, you've done that already?
Yeah, so this is a post-relaunch interview. Yeah.
Post-event amplification.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So on the 27th of March, we relaunched the Asanka. Asanka has been in the system from 2018. And we sort of try to improve it every time to make it more, effective tool, to make it an effective tool for teaching and learning.
Right.
Now, when we relaunch, we have a new user interface, which is very appealing to the eye. We also have user analytics, just as Mildred said, for the student and the teacher.
Okay.
So the student is able to track how he or she is learning with that analytics.
Right.
The teacher also has a corner where he or she can set questions. I remember in the days where we...
I wish I could hear this story, but we are actually pressed for time.
Yeah.
I know you came here with a message. What's that thing that our audience should take away from this conversation? And you can include where we can access your devices, a contact number, social media. Mildred, you take that for us.
Okay, so Asanka is a transformational opportunity for anyone out there. Like I said earlier, be it a school, a student, a parent. Now, the main aim is to provide smart learning anywhere. And we are also looking at bridging the digital divide in underserved communities. So Asanka has endless possibilities. It's limited. So it's limitless, sorry. So if you want to reach us, we have our website, www.myasanka.com, or you can send us an email at asanka@techaid.global, or you can call us or WhatsApp us on 0265 733 200, 0265 733 200, or better still, you can visit us at our office at Dansoman.
Okay.
In Dansoman on the 1 Cardinal Lane. So yes, Asanka is
transformational. It's here to transform lives.
Is Asanka.
Thomas and Mildred, thank you so much for coming. And please do well to patronize this if you have a child in school. And it's not just for education purposes, you said.
Yes,
so yeah, please, multi-purpose. Thomas Egan Ekuban is head of business operations at TechAid. Mildred Dede Mate is customer experience manager at TechAid. And they joined us for this conversation. Coming up next, E-Corner with Noella. Please stay.